He's the center. He's like the nucleus of VME right now. We're all volunteers. Some of you, raise your hand if you've never been to a VME meeting before. All right, 3. And then how many Mount St. Mary's friends do we have? 1, 2, 3. Great. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for having us here. Do I have anybody else? Barbara Autan is going to be here. She's in charge of the VME Jobs and Internship Program, which this is tied into. So what I want everyone to pay attention to closely is that you'll see on the Facebook feed or emails, like HBO is looking for a PA. You know, CBS is looking for a PA. These opportunities are popping up. They're real, and what we want to do is just help you get a feel for what that is all about. If that's something that you might want to step into and you know, give it a shot. Also, the last about 45 minutes of class, we want to do a little Q&A session, but also take a look at the resume. Raise your hand if you brought a resume with you. Awesome. So we're going to give some notes, and we're just, our panel of experts here is going to try to help everyone clean it up. We don't have a lot of time for one-on-one, but you need to make up in little groups and just take a red pen. Sorry about that. And hope to improve your resume so that when you do apply to one of these great VME HBO opportunities, they are looking for very specific things. So that should improve your odds. So we want you to get a feel for what's going on with our truly career committed professional ADs, PAs, production coordinators, so that when you interact with them, you make the right impression, which is going to get you that call back. And if you choose, you know, a year later, just look at those phone calls, you realize like this is good work. And maybe I want to do this because it's real. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of hours, a lot of blood, sweat, tears. It's a lot of pride, a lot of money in there as well. So that is our goal. I think we made our quick little announcements. The last thing I'd like to do is have Charles Bunce. Mr. Bunce here? Oh, yeah. Just, okay. Charles Bunce is the director of the film department here at Mount St. Mary's. And he's the director of the chair. I'm the chair. The chair is incorrected. We went to film school together here. We produced a movie immediately after film school, Black String. Kaylee is also a classmate of ours through the MFA program and a producer of Black String as well, which I directed with another graduate here, a veteran VME member, Richard Hanley. So I had a great experience here and truly, you know, grateful that they allow us to use their space. Most of you have been here so many times now, you should get school credit already. And that's just really through the generosity of Mount St. Mary. So if you could say a few words.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, so just a quick commercial for our institution. So we were founded in 1925 by this set of very forward-thinking nuns from the Sisters of St. Joseph of Condolet in France, in the Puy, who went out in the community and were very focused on serving their neighbors. And so they came over to America through a long series of events, founded Mount St. Mary's, and we're carrying on that tradition. And they've been very supportive in the development of the film program. And so at the heart of the film program is not just creating media, but creating media with a message. So we really feel the importance of creating media that means something and then hopefully can do something. We do have, again, as Brian talked about, we all went to our graduate degree here, an MFA in film and television. We have a great, fantastic undergraduate programs, but I think most of you, if you're interested, probably on the graduate side. And a very great small graduate program where you really get to know your instructors, you get a lot of hands-on instruction, and you really get to cultivate projects that matter to you. And that's where Black String developed out of the thesis project for Brian and Richard Hanley. It's a low residency program, so it's 6 weekends every semester. They're non-consecutive weekends, so you get like a break in between. And I'm looking at the face. I think Brian had people represent. I can already see that we have a few alum in the audience, a few of our students here. So I'm here. I'll make it short now, but I'm here if you have questions. But I'm also here to say welcome to VME. We're very happy to partner with VME and happy to host these events. It's such a great resource for all of us, and so thank you.
And just to start this PA class off right, let me show you how you do it. Would you like water? Would you like water? Would you like water?
Yes, please. Okay. Call you for the next job.
Yeah. I also want to give a big shout out to Noah, who's sitting in the center here, and he brought his team, Justin and Rob, right?
Yeah, Justin Rabb.
What's the name? If you would want to say something, because I know
Check,
that the
check, check.
camera's looking here, but if y'all turn around, like looks like we're
I don't know.
on a television
One of
show
these,
right now.
maybe.
And he just said, hey, I'll do it, like 24 hours ago. I had no idea that he's going to bring a full studio with him.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. We're Sgt Brothers Pictures. It's my side business, sort of. That's what's weird about being a PA is sometimes you have to do other things when business gets slow. And so I do some corporate video stuff. Thanks for the shout out, of course. But we're happy to be with you guys and serving you guys. So thank you very much.
And are we live streaming? Hello, everybody. How many people do we have? I'm just curious. It's recorded, so anyone who watches this later on.
Hi, Mom.
So what I want to do real quick is play this 5-minute video that is a PA wearing a GoPro. Okay? How many people here have worked as a PA before? Okay, so we're all here. I just want to put everyone in that frame of mind and just start thinking about the tasks that you got to do. This is a non-union show, so I know that our friends here are going to say, actually, some of those things you don't want to do, that he points out. But it gives you the idea, and I just want this is a good mood setter, okay? Like put everyone in that frame of mind. You start to hear those radio calls, and like, oh god. So if this plays, I think that it's gonna set the table myself.
Hi, Ben. Yeah. Are you rolling? Yes, I think so. Pictures up. Rolling, rolling, rolling. PAs do a lot of things. We set up chairs and tables and tents, and we get people water skies. A lot of random things, the things that you sort of would never think of. You never really know what to expect. Yeah, rehearsal's up. Rehearsal's up. One thing that's great about being a PA too is you kind of get to work with all the different departments. I mean, in one take, you can be wrangling cords for the camera department as they dolly, so you're holding it up so the dolly will pull the cord. And then in the very next take, you're helping to set up bottles for the art department, all these breakaway bottles, and resetting all that, making sure it's okay, all in the right places. So big glimpse into all these different departments. My name is Colin West McDonald, and on Rock Jump the Show, I was a production assistant. That's a cut. When you go to a shoot, you're either going to be working on location or like on a set. And so Tip Jar was actually on a set. It was Riverfront Stages in Glendale. And essentially what it was a bar set, with just sort of fake flat walls around it. And then beyond that set was like a big sort of warehouse building. And so as a PA, we were often right between that threshold of being on set and just being offset.
Yeah, our department can we lose the cash register from the bar? Copy that.
Yeah, one second. Can you get this off this table here? And then put the cash register on this table.
Copy. As a PA, the assistant director is your boss. And often there's 2 or even 3 assistant directors, a first and a second. The assistant director is standing usually right next to the director, trying to organize the whole day's shoot. So oftentimes the AD will get on the walkie-talkie and say, hey, PA Nation, we need...
Can I have James and 2 additional background assemblies?
And that sort of sends out a web to all the production assistants who go and kind of try to make that happen as soon as they can. If the AD calls and they need something you don't have, try to find it and try to find it quick. And if you can't find it quick, let them know, because otherwise they think you're going to be doing it. And if you can't figure out how to do it quickly, then tell them, because the worst thing is that you don't tell them, and then when they need the thing 10 minutes later, they don't have it, and they ask you, and you're like, oh, I didn't get it. And then it's like the whole production has to stop. And that is like the worst. Nobody on set ever wants to be the reason why the camera's not rolling. There's this whole thing happening on the walkie-talkies that most people in production don't even know is going on. Copy that. Fine. I gotta go get the walkies going. As far as communication goes, like on the walkies, you always have to be present. That's another big thing PAs have to do. I mean, if you want to get called back to another job, you have to be present on the walkie-talkie. You have to say, copy that, I got you. And often it's back and forth. So it's like you really need to communicate, yes, we got the answer to that. Go for Colin.
Can you get us a few rolls of paper towel?
Yep, I'm on my way. So the one thing that you definitely do not want to do on the walkie-talkies is not respond. So the one situation where you would think, oh, I can't respond would be in the bathroom. But if you're going to the bathroom, what you need to do is get on the walkie-talkie and say, I'm going 10-1.
10-1 currently.
And everybody does that, and that's sort of a respectful thing. Never say, I'm going to go pee, or I'm never going to don't do that. But 10-1 is the kind of code for that. And that sort of signifies, hey, I'm going to be off walkie-talkie for like the next 2 minutes. So oftentimes on rocket jump the show. Freddie would just disappear.
Who has eyes on Freddy? Freddy Wong?
Anybody got eyes on Freddie? That was like a common thing.
See Freddie? I haven't. I'm looking for him.
No eyes on Freddy? Not on set.
That happens all the time because not everybody's on the walkie-talkie. In fact, very few people on set are on the walkie-talkie.
Freddy is 10-1.
Did you get that? He's 10-1.
All the PAs are usually spread out throughout the set, but you are the eyes of the set. You're the collective sort of eye of the set. So if they need somebody, you need to find them and get them to where they need to be because they don't know they're needed.
Oh, she's on walkie.
He's on walkie.
Searching.
If anybody's near him, they can just ask if he still needs me.
Hey, Osh. Channel 1, Amber's calling you. Osh is gonna talk to you in a second.
So hot breaks, that's a big term that goes around.
Part of the job as PAs, you gotta carry hot bricks, aka fresh batteries, for the walkies. So whenever somebody wants one, we have to be there to give it to them. Easy enough. Yeah. I mean, all right. Perfect time.
Those are oftentimes needed on set. A lot of the camera folks always have, and the G&E guys always have their walkie-talkies, but they don't have time to go get a battery, so you need to be there on set to hand them one, and you'll end up getting handed back a cold brick, in which case you take that cold brick to the charging station, which is usually at the trailers or the production office, and get that charging. Try to think ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it there. Everyone like having flashbacks and memories of bad days on set. So to get this thing kicked off, actually, can I get that mic there?
Yeah.
Yeah. How's that working? Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me okay? Great. Okay, so to kick this off, we just got a nice primer there. I want to give a shout out to A Day in the Life of Production Assistant from Rocket Jump Film School. It's a great little clip. It's clearly a non-union show. Listen, we're going to be talking a lot about union projects here, but there's non-union gigs all the time. So some of that stuff, you get a job, you will be doing. You just got to know that's why we're here. Which one are you on? What are the expectations going to be when you show up so you don't piss the wrong person off or look like you're just standing around being lazy. Real quick on me, I directed a film a couple years ago. So, I'm directing, I'm writing a little independent film, and then I'm on my way to a bachelor party and an email comes through from VME. HBO's looking for like a PA trainee on a show. And I was like, why would I do that? I just directed a film. I'm a writer. Like I PA'd and I did that stuff a decade ago before I was even in the Army. Why would I do that? But something in my gut said, opportunities. Everything is an opportunity. After the Army, I was starting again. And even though I made a little film, it's a feature, like it's a real deal, but it's not a studio film. I said, I got to do it. I feel really like a piece of garbage if I just passed up what could be a great opportunity. So, didn't jump in the car for 2 hours, sent out that resume. I ended up getting the gig on Barry season 1. I worked, on HBO. I think I met you on that, Noah.
Through Chris Riddle.
Yeah, through Chris Riddle.
Yeah.
So for 3 months, day in and day out, I was driving to Culver City to the Sony lot, working on a gigantic show that's now an Emmy winner. And immediately, the first day I showed up, even though I was like, I'm a director, is this really the right move for me? It was unbelievable. I'm going to say this much. So many of you here in the military, if someone said, oh yeah, I know how it is. I do paintball. You're like, okay, yeah, paintball's cool. I've done that a few times. Yeah, that's fun, but that's not the real deal. And like it or not, when you're talking to people who do this for real, they're in guilds, they're in unions, they work on huge shows, studio shows, day in and day out. When you say like, oh, I'm a director, I'm a writer, and you're doing little small projects, they look at you. It's nice, yeah, it's great, but they look at you like you're telling the 82nd Airborne, infantry officer that, yeah, you're pretty good at paintball.
Yeah, that's cute.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of an ego hit, but just accept that now. And everyone has to do it. You got to be creative. You got to make your movies. You have to be out there doing your thing. But you got to know there's the big boy, big girl world, and they know they're top level, and they want to see that you're getting in line and following protocol. And like, you just need to remove whatever you're doing creatively on the weekends or on your own time. Remove that hat and put on that PA hat. Put on that assistant hat, put on that whatever other hat it is, and own it and be the best private you can. Be the best junior enlisted person you can be and kick ass. And don't worry about your creative stuff, that's gonna take care of itself. And you're gonna have a time, 6 months later on the show, 1 month later on the show, they're gonna start asking you, what do you do? What are you into? Now you have a personal relationship. So we're here to just like really talk about doing a great job on set for great professionals and how do you get called back again. So with that, I'm gonna pitch it over for like a real quick intro for each of our guest speakers here. They're gonna let you know where they came from and what they're currently doing and likely where they're gonna be in the next few years.
Well, my name is Cody Gallo. I'm a DGA second AD, and I guess from what the bio that went out with this invite, I was an Army officer, did 4 years, and then got into production. Pretty much started pursuing the assistant director career path within that first couple months of getting out of the Army, and so that's what I'm doing now as a DGA second AD. And yeah, career goals, continuing on with key second AD, next step would be first AD, and longer term goals, production manager or line producer.
You know what? We're gonna try using this mic. I think this mic's getting the best.
Best signal?
Yeah, you know what? So let me get this real quick. In one sentence, because some people online might have missed it.
Okay.
Infantry officer, 82nd Airborne.
Yeah, just
DGA training program, second AD.
yeah. The quick recap: Cody Gallo, DGA second AD. I was an Army officer, 82nd Airborne, deployed to Iraq in 2007, Haiti in 2010. That time, 2010, is when I got out and started pursuing production while also still serving the National Guard 1 week in a month. So did that transition for 6 years. And so been pursuing the AD career path for 9 years, and that's where I'm at now. So.
Hey everybody, I'm Noah. I am originally from Texas, but have been in California for almost 7 years. I did between the bigger project. I'm a PA, so that's what I'm a PA, but I also non-union an AD, commercials, films, that kind of stuff. The video before that you saw, it's interesting that some things apply and some things don't apply when we're specifically talking about DGA. That is the big production, the level stuff where you only have certain responsibilities as a PA, whereas like the non-union stuff, you get to kind of dance between the two. But anyways, it's interesting to have different experiences in that. And so when it gets to my time, I'd love to talk about that a little more. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I am a little more than halfway. I'm about 400 days in as you need 600 PA days to get to union level. And that would put me into the third area and that kind of stuff. And I also have about 180 days as an AD, so I could go that route too, which is 400 days. So I'm just kind of seeing whatever comes first. That's where I'm at.
Hi, I'm Diana Wilson. I've been out here since 2004. I was in the Army way back in the day, long time ago. And when I got out, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Just like right before I went in the military, didn't know what I wanted to do. And I started acting and I got bored on set. So I started doing production stuff. I started PAing and, hey, do you need help with this and that? And wound up being really good at that. That was all in St. Louis. And then when I moved out here, 4 days after I got here, I had a PA job. And that led to another one, and that one led to another one. And then a year after I got out here, I got my big break as a production secretary on Desperate Housewives during their first season. I was with them all 8 seasons. And then we moved on to Rake. After that, we moved on to True Detective. We had a team, and we kind of stayed a team for a long time. After True Detective, what I do? Fear the Walking Dead. Oh no, The Fosters, and then Fear the Walking Dead. And then I just finished LA's Finest. So I've been doing this for 15 years now. It's a long time. I'm a APOC, moving up to coordinator. APOC is an assistant production office coordinator. So you've got your PAs, then you've got a production secretary, then you've got your APOC, coordinator, UPM, line producer, and then all the other people up there, all the executive producers and stuff. So I'm in the middle right now, heading up to be a producer. And I'm in the local 871, which is for that, and also accounting, and our union's a little, like all the little redheaded stepchildren are in my little union. So yeah, I've been in a production office for a long time, so hopefully I can impart some wisdom on you guys.
Absolutely, and we're going to talk how, being on set production, how we're going to talk about how set production, the point where it interacts with what's going on in the office, which is kind of like the central cortex of the entire project. It's the brain. And then the production, again, the military term is kind of the tip of the spear, like always going out there, always fighting time, environment, and I guess the production office is kind of like HQ, always looking forward to the next day, planning for that next day. So what we want to do again is we're going to talk about guilds, DGA, ways that you can join the DGA, when is the right time to think about if that's something that you want to pursue, because you heard everyone's been at it a long time, and that's normal. That's just what it takes. So you don't have to come in and saying, oh yeah, maybe you do. Maybe you come in charging hard and you know that you want to go that path. That's fantastic. But you can also jump in and just be a good PA for 2 years and say, hey, I don't think I'm going to get those 600 days. I just got hired to a writer's room, or I'm going to go be a grip, or the location managers love me and they're going to bring me in. So you don't have to commit to this very long road that you're hearing about, but know that it is a real career path. And like I said, a exciting and well-paid career with a lot of benefits once you get in those unions. So don't be scared off when you hear everything it takes to get into it. It's like it's not easy to become a first sergeant. It's not easy to become a sergeant major. It takes a long time. And these things take a long time as well. But you can still enjoy, like me, one enlistment, get out and move on and do other things. But what you will learn while you're on set as a PA from people at this level is how to make your sets better. So if you don't even want a PA, just pay attention and see how they think, how they plan, how when you're directing or producing something and you work with folks like this, how you can be a better producer or director for them. So, yeah. Here, Diana, this is the mic.
I just want to add to that, like he said, even if you don't want to, you want to be a writer, you want to be an editor, be a PA for a little bit. I mean, just do it for, a show or two or whatever. Just get an idea of what they do, what the set does, what production does, because again, it's going to make you better at your job, knowing what other jobs are, because then you've got that teamwork. You know what they're doing, and you know what you're doing, and everybody works together.
Yeah, I would just jump on that last thing of if, even if you're out here and want to direct and produce, I would love it to just train people also how to use an assistant director if you never worked on that kind of set. And, that's another thing I see when I came up through the non-union world, was just even the understanding of what an assistant director can do for you. So if that applies to you, that's something to listen for as well.
Absolutely. And again, I was a lowly PA, and I'm sitting there, and sometimes I'm stopping traffic, and sometimes I'm getting people water, and sometimes I'm standing in for Bill Hader, and sometimes I'm driving, Henry Winkler in a golf cart across Sony and talking to Henry Winkler about what an actor does. And sometimes I'm right next to Video Village, and I'm listening to Alec Berg and Bill Hader talk about the ins and outs on what they're going to do to shoot this next scene. And here comes, the cinematographer. And so believe me, don't think PA, coffee, gopher, worthless, everyone hates me. You're going to see so much stuff. You're going to be privy to so much information that if you're not on those sets, it's not going to happen. So again, there's a lot of gold to mine, even though, officially you're on the bottom of that, actually not on the bottom of the call sheet, but you're on the bottom of the payroll totem pole. But there's so much to learn from, again, the best in the business. You just eyes open, ears open, do your job, but you're going to learn so much for whatever you want to do in the future from top level professionals. So with that, we're now going to go into the second AD portion. I'm going to hand it over to Cody, and he's going to talk about what does a second AD do. And he can talk about how he interacts with the first AD as well, but that's several steps ahead. I think second AD is like would you say a 5-year plan? Someone could say in 5 years, I would like to be a second AD. So we're going to kind of focus on being a second AD. What are the daily tasks? What are the expectations? And then the big point here is, what does he want to see from a fellow AD, or what does he want to see from a PA? Who would he bring back? Who would he hire again? Who would go on his Rolodex? Okay.
Yeah, so been talking to Brian about this kind of class for a while, and I think the big takeaways are, do you want to be an AD? And if I can give some perspective on what I do, is this something you're thinking about doing? Or if you're working as a PA, how can you keep getting jobs? I would love to impart that. How do you get hired or keep getting hired as a PA? And, do you want to pursue this? You have been, you're thinking about it. So those are the big takeaways I'd love to impart. If we get to the end and I haven't covered anything, and please ask the question and we'll go from there. But so I think this handout came around kind of once we started, but this is something I revised, duties and expectations for an AD and PA staff, and it applies most to this section, I think. And this is from a pilot that I just wrapped on April 2nd. I was a key second AD, and I wrote up, I drafted this to my PA team because I didn't get to meet face-to-face with everybody before we started, so it ended up being an email the weekend before we started shooting. And so I took that and I just tried to revise it quickly for this class, and because it was a more kind of colloquial email. And for me, what this talks about is, first, what is a second AD and what is an AD doing? And really, it starts with number 2, because number 1, safety is always first. That's why that's number 1, and you can read that. And number 2 is for my overall philosophy of what an AD is doing, and the main purpose of ADs is that we are gathering all of the elements on set for the director to accomplish their vision. And I tried to kind of distill that and cement that for my team of PAs to say that the priority every day and all of your effort is about getting those elements to set. And there's a lot of different ways the different members of the team get that there. But what I see on this level of production is that there's so many things that come along with it, that there can be a lot of distractions that keep you from getting an actor to set, to a prop being forgotten, and you'd be surprised how things can just shut down a production, a multi-million-dollar production, and we didn't have the right faucet on set for a sync gag, and now you have everybody waiting. So, and the other thing too is just for the director, they get up to set, they want to rehearse, they want to do something, and they say, all right, we're starting this rehearsal, where's the files that this actor's handing this actor? And it's not there, that suddenly throws everybody off. And that is the times when, as an AD, I feel like, we've failed, because we're communicating to all the departments, and your goal is just, when the director steps on set, they have everything they need. So to me, that is just kind of distilling what an AD is doing, from the very beginning in prep with the first AD, is figuring out what the director needs on set to accomplish their vision and having it there. And so they're not waiting. And it's, it takes also all the technical stuff, that's part of the AD, part of it is you're taking all the technical organizational aspects of a production to free up the director to remain creative and be, able to do their creative work on set. And part of being able to do that is having all those assets that they want on set: cars, props, actors, background. So to get into what I do, I'll just speak, I'm currently in the key second AD position is what I work at. And so, I'll try and just give you a quick overview of, some of the day-to-day aspects of that. That's my priority, is getting everything to set. As a key second AD, the main task that I have is to create the call sheet every day for the next day. So, Diane brought in some great examples of different call sheets here that you can look at. But basically, what I'm doing is we have a template, and I'm filling this out, and I go through and I try to prep as much as I can. And I'm going off a couple things when I make a call sheet. I have the one-line schedule that the first AD has made. I have a day out of days, which is the cast, when the characters play. I have a background breakdown. I have a shooting schedule. These are all documents that are drawn from a breakdown that the first AD did in prep. And so those are the first pass on the call sheet is inputting all this information. And on the back, I have the crew. So usually once you do the first one, you got you have 95% of the crew names in there. That's, comes off your crew list that the office puts out. And so I start out my morning. I have a template, which I usually call the pre-pre. So if you hear that, it's a prelim. And the prelim is the draft version of the call sheet. So my goal is...
Cody, real quick.
Yeah.
Whenever there's key terms, could you kind of highlight them?
Yeah.
So our folks can write them down?
Definitely.
I've heard pre-pre so far.
Yeah. Pre-pre, as I said, that's a version of the prelim that only certain people are going to see. It doesn't go out to the whole crew. And the prelim then is a draft version of the call sheet. And that prelim is going to get published by the office and distroed to every member of the crew. It's going to be emailed out. It's going to be, we'll print out a hard copy on yellow. So, if this was a prelim, yellow is the color of a prelim, and white is the color of a final call sheet. But
Ran out of white paper.
yeah, these are printed on yellow because she ran out of white. But if it was a prelim, it would also, on mine, it usually says prelim at the top, and then I remove that banner when it goes out. And so my goal is to have the prelim published before lunch, crew lunch, that day, which is 6 hours after crew call. You're usually trying to break for crew lunch is the goal. So that's my hope, is to get the prelim out as quickly as possible, but no later than lunch. And the reason for that is you're putting a draft call sheet out so that all the crew members can look at it, and then you start getting feedback. And so as soon as everybody sees it, I start getting, phone calls, angry phone calls usually, because I, misspelled somebody's name, or I left somebody off that was supposed to be on the call sheet, or why did you give me this call time, that kind of stuff. But also just, good feedback. People see stuff for their department, and we need to adjust it. So then I spend the afternoon, or whatever time of day it is, but after lunch, revising the prelim to put a final call sheet out at wrap. And so that's the main task. And for me, the call sheet is collecting all the information for the next day. So all that stuff, like I said, in number 2 here on my expectations of an AD is getting all those elements. Because when the call sheet is published, this is the document that tells everybody what is supposed to be on set for each scene. So that's just the main task, and I have to do that. And while I'm doing that, I'm dealing with everything else that's going on in production. But so just to kind of, maybe fill in some of the rest of the day, I'm starting the morning, maybe in base camp. Usually I have somebody like a base camp PA or a base camp AD who's getting the actors ready through hair and makeup, all that. But like the Army, my philosophy on ADing is you're also, you're responsible for everything the unit does, fails to do, accomplishes or fails to do. So kind of like the Army, definition of leadership. I may not be doing everything myself, I shouldn't be, but as a manager, I also am responsible for whether stuff happens. So, in the morning, getting the actors ready, kind of everything's starting to come to life in base camp. I'm usually there working on the call sheet. I've got my radio on, I'm listening.
Can you tell us what base camp is?
Yeah, so base camp would be all the trailers or dressing rooms where actors are going to get ready. Maybe you have breakfast set up there. And depending on whether you're a stage shoot or a location shoot, dictates, the distance from your base camp to your set. Sometimes you're right outside the stage you're shooting on, so everybody walks back and forth to set. It's relatively simple. like the pilot I just did, we were location every day. So we had no stages, we had no studio. We were a CBS pilot, but we didn't, we didn't shoot on a lot. So our base camp every day was a shuttle, usually van ride, shuttle to the set, house, church, whatever we were shooting at, it's a shuttle. So there's the aspect, that's kind of like your rear echelon stuff is happening there. And for me, it's another reason I like to highlight the number 2 priorities. There's a lot of things start happening in base camp that kind of get distractions, or oh, we're waiting on a shirt or a breakfast order. And what starts happening is people lose focus of the idea that the priority is always the set and getting everything to set. And if you've worked on these sets, you kind of understand what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, you maybe not, is that there's just so much friction that starts to build up. And suddenly you have 11 a.m. crew, I'm just looking at one of these, 11 a.m. crew call. The first AD and director want to rehearse with all the actors for the first scene at 11 a.m. It's a 15-minute van ride to set, and people aren't thinking about that or pushing people, and the actors are definitely not thinking about how long it takes them to get to set. That's why we have base camp ADs. And most of our job security as ADs is, thinking for them on when they need to be in a van, traveling to set, that kind of thing. So the thing I'm getting at is there's a lot of stuff, a lot of friction could build up, and it starts putting you behind right off the bat. So I always like, the first thing of the day is, as a second AD, is I push my whole team to get everything up to set, feed the beast, that director, first AD. You get them started rehearsing that first scene, you get the first shot off. Anything else that's like a problem, we had to change something, an actor's wardrobe wasn't right, these things that are going to derail production. Once you're rolling on something, we can do all the problem solving, which I have as number 4 down here. But if you don't get enough stuff on set that they can just start shooting, it'll really start derailing, slowing things down, and then that puts the spotlight on the ADs, because it's like, why weren't the actors on set? You didn't give them enough time through hair and makeup, or what are all the problems? And that's where the spotlight comes on you as an AD team, and you're like, all right, well, how did we fail to get everything up there?
Cody, can I make a
Yeah.
So yeah, the morning, right? It's your first day on a show, and you show up, and the things, it's not slow going. It's already moving at 100 miles per hour. As a PA, well, 80 miles per hour. As a PA, you might have got a pre-call, so you're even coming in before everyone else. What do you expect when your PA team, and even, you have an additional second, and it's a big day on location, what do you need to see as a mentality from PAs coming in? And you do have your staff who help you motivate, your staffed PAs that help everyone motivate and get situated, but what do you want to see? Because he's really highlighting, Cody's highlighting the importance of, it's all about first shot. In his first shot, do we put first shot, estimated first shot on a call sheet?
Depends on the show. Some will have shooting call.
Yeah.
Some of these have shooting call on here, so that's, and that can be kind of vague. And some producers have even started taking that off. They don't care. So that is on there. But first shot, even if it's not on the call sheet, is definitely reported in text chains and emails up to the studio and to the office.
Yeah, part of that. First shot happens. When first shot happens, like that needs to get to us right away. Like as soon as it happens, I expect a text message to me and my PAs and my team, because then we have to generate an email that goes to like 20 people. And like if I don't get it, if I'm expecting the first shot to be at 12 o'clock or 12:15, and all of a sudden it's 12:30, I expect one of my PAs or myself to, text the key PA and be like, hey, first shot happened? What's happening? Keep us updated. And we have to work together to have a lot of communication so that all the because they'll call us and we don't want them to call us.
Real quick, I think there's a good little format we were going to roll with this that I'm seeing here, and I think that discussing, let's do it, first shot, like that's what we're here to do. You feel it in the air, like damn it, I didn't get to eat breakfast yet. Everyone's moving around, like I don't feel like moving fast, or I got to pack the vans. There's so many things. I got lost. I was running 5 minutes behind. Whatever's going on, it is first shot. And how do you help make that happen? So even Noah, if you want to comment on the different ways that when you show up with your PA team and you're there to support your second, what are you thinking? Like, let's get to that first shot. Everybody can kind of comment as you have.
You want to jump on that?
Sure. Yeah, essentially getting to that first shot, you have a series of tasks and things, certain responsibilities, which is beautifully outlined on Cody's paper here. So definitely read through that. And depending on what role you're assigned, you'll have certain responsibilities to get stuff happening. So generally in the morning, the first hour is the hardest hour, I would say. The first and the last are kind of the biggest moments for responsibilities and checklists and things that are going on in your mind to make sure stuff happens. And so essentially, we're preventing overtime or trying to minimize overtime, right? So that's the end result of what we're doing in the morning. If we can get the day started off well and fast, then typically speaking, generally speaking, at the end of the day, we'll be ahead or we'll have more stuff done. And the opposite of that is true sometimes when you start late and you're behind the ball. And at the end of the day, this is a business. That's another big thing we got to know is producers, and the money side of it does influence everything else that's happening. And so as far as day-to-day tasks, breakfast is a big one. Getting to set and checking in with your ADs, being there early. A lot of the times as a PA, you're very limited on time and stuff can hit the ground running and you don't get breakfast. So my personal suggestion is to get there early. Andrew Ward, who's an AD that I've worked with a lot, one of his things is you're there 15 minutes early and you're on time. If you're any time after that, you're already late. And so that's kind of one of the things I picked up on too, is get there 15, if not 30 minutes early, and get breakfast before you're on the clock, because once the day starts, it starts.
I had a PA that every single day, he'd show up on time. It was great. It was wonderful. But especially in the morning, he'd be like, "Can I go get breakfast?" I go, "Are you done with your duties?" And he's like, "Well," and he was my biggest procrastinator also. I'm going to just tell you now, don't procrastinate. If you have a task, do it. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get another task and another thing's going to happen. And then, shit's going to hit the fan. Excuse me. Can I say that? And that original thing that you were supposed to do doesn't get done. And then you have to deal with me. Or your APOC or your coordinator or whoever gave you the task, and it's not, or your AD. It's just do it. It's like, oh, it can wait till later. It cannot wait till later because there's going to be 10, 20, 30 other things that need to get done. Do it, get out of the way. And then you might have 5 minutes to yourself. Eat before, get there, like he said, get there early, eat, and then, get to your work. Biggest pet peeve is food.
Yeah, I agree. Either you got your breakfast done or you eat at some point where I don't see you eating. It's fine. Breakfast burrito in your pocket is a great way to go. Eat a burrito in a lockup once you're on set. It's, that's fine. So I think some basic expectations. I think it starts in number 3 when I talk about communication. That's a big thing for the impression I have. This was my guidance to my staff PAs starting the show. But if you're a day player, you're going to be judged quickly one way or the other. And this is something Brian's, really interested in talking about. And if you're in this position or want to be in this position where you're day playing as a PA, everybody know what day playing is? Day playing means, you're coming in for one day of work as a PA, and I could be hiring you 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, but you're not, guaranteed work for more than 1 day. So, and usually when you're in that day playing circuit, which I'm sure Noah could talk about, you're working on a bunch of different shows. You're getting referred to. Sometimes you're working for somebody an AD or sometimes it's a referral and you're showing up. You don't know anybody on the crew, and so you have this opportunity to make an impression and get called back by this crew again. And just kind of on that note, where I'm at as a key second AD is I am the one hiring PAs. So if this is what you're trying to do, I would also be happy to answer questions and get into, how that whole hiring process works. We'll see how that fits in tonight, but, I can describe how I am hiring if that would help anybody on the other side who's thinking about it. But the big impression stuff is you show up, you're 15 minutes early, you get to crew parking, and it's kind of like the note on showing up tonight. It's, be there early, don't come in before 6. I would say the same thing about coming into the AD trailer on a production is be there 15 minutes early, don't show up an hour early. I may be there working. I don't want to talk to anybody. I got there early to work on my call sheet. So be sensitive of how early you show up. But if there's a caterer, go eat breakfast, get there, crew parking early, hang out in your car, read the call sheet over on your phone a couple times. But my thing is you're there so that by your call time, whatever your call time is, you should have your radio on ready to go. And I brought, this is my surveillance headset. If you don't have one and you want to work on set, you should get one of these, because the first thing I'm going to judge a PA on is whether they have a headset. And the biggest reason is because communication is my third priority here. And if you can't talk or listen well on the radio, then you're not going to be effective for me. We have headsets that you can borrow. We call them Burger King headsets because they look like a telemarketer thing with the little fuzzball. And I'm going to give it to you, and I'm going to give you the deepest lockup, and I'm going to assume that you can't hear anything for the rest of the day because those suck, and you need a surveillance headset. So I have it up here. When we have a break, you can come up, take a picture of it. This is, when I got it, it was $25 on Amazon. They used to be like $80. I used to go to Production Sound in Burbank and buy them, and they last maybe 2 years. But I get these ones now for $25 on Amazon. It might even be cheaper now, but have one of these if you're going to work on set. And that is going to be the first impression of, oh, this person knows what they're doing, or they've never been on set before because they don't have a headset. So, it just is what it is, but that's what the impression you're making if you don't have a headset.
And all your fellow PAs will be judging you too, and all the crew members will be judging you too. You don't want to wear the McDonald's headset. So when we do get a break, write down that model number. So it's like looking good in your kit in the military. You better look good in your gear or you're getting judged. It's very much the same thing.
Yeah.
Cargo pants.
Yeah. Get one, earlier too. Try it out at home. Fit it in your ear, and it's still gonna be a whole new experience once you plug it into a radio and you're trying to listen to a radio and talk to somebody at the same time. It took me years still to be able to carry on a conversation and ignore the, radio in my ear sometimes. But just kind of back to the expectations. I think the biggest thing is you're communicating and listening as a PA, and just the level of enthusiasm. You're going to be asked to do stuff, and as a day player, I don't really usually expect much. If I don't know you, I probably just called you in for lockups, maybe breakfast orders, and that's the level I have expectation on a day player PA that I've never met if I hired you. So when you come in and you have a positive attitude, you're on time, then after that, the impression is just the level of enthusiasm you have day to day. And it's like, take this pallet of waters over there and this and that, and it's just, yep, you got it, and then it is just riding this fine line of, spend some time, talking to the ADs, but you have to do it at the right time. And so I was kind of touching on that as a key second AD. In the morning, I got a lot on my mind, and I usually, it's not really a good time to talk to me, in those first moments. Hey, I'm here, oh, great, thanks, go get some food if you haven't, is what I'll usually say, just to get you out of my hair. The best time to talk to me during the day is right after I publish the prelim, because I suddenly take a breath and now I'm just waiting for stuff to come in. And this is a time, and it's usually around lunch or right after crew lunch. At that point, hey, I would love to hear where you're from, what you've been doing, and chat a little bit. So it's just that, and there's some other things on that, but it's kind of picking your time to have a little bit more of an impression than just being in your lockup and following directions. And so there's that aspect. The other one is it may not seem like I'm really paying attention or watching to what you're doing, but I am. And I'm also asking all the other PAs, towards the end of the day, or when I'm working on the prelim and I might still have to fill a PA position, I say, are we going to call this person back, or should I look for somebody else? So I'm going to ask the PAs on set if, what their impression is. Is this somebody? And so that's kind of the lesson of, don't just suck up to me because I'm, the AD, and hire PAs, because if you're not helping the PAs and you think that, when you're on set and I'm in the trailer, I'm not going to hear about, that you blew somebody off on set, you blew off a PA or somebody when they asked you to, help them grab some background from holding or that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Locking up the set. Well, yeah, I see that Cody has kind of like PA duties, and I think that'll be a good way to just go right down the list, and Noah can definitely jump in and talk about doing those things. But there is, again, you show up, maybe you are a morning person, and even if you're not, you're showing up the first day, the 10th day, the final day with a great attitude, right? You don't ever let anything show like you're having a bad day. But the people you're working with, especially you don't know them, the AD's not looking at you, oh, he hates me, the other PAs just barely even look at you, and there's one person that's nice. And these people are horrible. They hate me. I'm never gonna get hired again. Half of them haven't had coffee yet. Half of them worked, only slept for 4 hours. So don't get emotional, and don't try to match that. Really, it could be you feel the stress, and it's all about that first shot. It's stress, and things are already kind of falling behind, and you show up like, I don't know what's happening. Why is everyone so mean? And then maybe you're not as friendly because it's just that natural reaction. Don't do it. Just stay positive. What do you need? You got it, Roger. Copy. I'm on it. Whatever you need. Don't match people's levels of maybe, I don't know, early morning grunge and angst. Because by lunch, everyone's lovely. You're like, wow, who are these people? So yeah, stay positive.
Yeah, back to the.
Yeah. So I want to make one comment. I'll kind of pass it off as a question to Noah too. But so on that impression side, I will say another thing for getting called back is this fine line of the first AD as a day player PA, or in particular as a day player, if you're trying to make an impression, is I have first ADs that they love it when day players come up and introduce themselves. That is, to them, they're like, they'll come tell me, hey, that person, they're awesome, they're going somewhere. But the key to it is when you do that, and that is a skill. And so I'll pass this off to Noah, and his maybe examples and experience and some advice on this. But it's important that you just go up and tell them, the first AD has a call sheet maybe in their pocket and could look at it to see what your name is, but they don't read the call sheet, after it's published the day before, so they probably haven't looked at your name. But it is important, and so for some ADs, you just cement that name, and then they will start calling you throughout the day. Hey, go, they'll see you in a lockup, and they'll say, hey, Brian, pull that cone over there, and you're able to do that within 3 seconds, and suddenly you just made that first AD's day because they can roll. So, but the point is that don't go up right before crew call like that. Like I was saying, there's that crux of the morning, and the first AD has a lot on their mind trying to get things started, and that's kind of with any scene, like getting the rehearsal off and that kind of thing. So they'll get the rehearsal off, and now things will break up, and we're going to get an estimate from the cinematographer, and it'll be, okay, we just watched the rehearsal, we did a marking rehearsal, and marking rehearsal means the camera assistants will put tape down where the actors, walked in the rehearsal, so now actors can step out. Now we're going to get a lighting estimate, and in, whatever it is, 10, 15, 20 minutes, the first AD is now going to kind of like take a sigh of relief because, they got everything started, they got the rehearsal. Now the DP now it's on the DP, the director of photography. It's on them now to, start organizing the lighting. And this depending on the first AD, this is where you can kind of read the situation if you're on set and say, this might be a good time, especially some first ADs they're going to step over to craft service to get a coffee or something. And if you see them en route, don't slow them down from getting their coffee. But, this is a time to say, hey, I'm Cody. I'm one of your day players today. I just want to say hi. And that's it. If they want to engage you more, cool, chat with them. But it's just that's an example of how you might be able to just say hi to the first AD, make an impression, and then fade out. So if they want to talk to you more, cool. But it is I think it is important. And if you don't do that, that's kind of another thing where you just might not get called back. You might just, not from anybody not liking you or anything, it's just, you didn't make any impression. So because I'll ask the first AD, I was like, hey, did any of those day players stand out to you? Should I bring them back? It's like, oh yeah, this guy Brian, was on it today. So I don't know, if you have
Sure.
experience with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as a day player, you're there and you have times where you can kind of shine, so to speak. But at the same time, you can be overzealous. You can step on people's toes. You can get in the way. So it's finding that balance. And that's a lot of what being a PA does, is kind of reading the situation and knowing when to speak up and when to not. And so one of the things too, as far as a learning standpoint go, Cody just kind of made me something click in my mind, is the sense of like, if you understand what the first AD's goal is and how his workflow goes towards that rehearsal, then you're going to know when to approach him. If you know Cody's role as a second AD, how his workflow of his day goes, then you'll know when to approach him. The next one down on the list is second, who deals mostly with background actors, placement, that kind of stuff. So just having an idea of what everybody does in their role, having that snapshot in your mind will allow you to interact with that person better, and understanding essentially how to invoke conversation without getting in the way or interrupting the flow of the day. And that's a big thing too, because ultimately we're there to work, but for you to get work, you need to make sure you pop up on somebody's radar, right? So just kind of reading that out and knowing when to approach somebody and how to approach somebody's good. Also, it's a conversation. I think a lot of times I run into PAs who are either too talkative and they control that conversation, they're 80, 90% of that conversation or more, or they're the opposite, where they're not outgoing enough. So you got to find that balance as well. Yeah.
Any notes for like impressions and getting in the office?
How to get into the office? Well, in the office, we really don't have day players unless somebody's like out for a week, or we know they're not going to be there for a significant amount of time. Then we might have a day player come in, or that would be like a 1 week player. We'd still call them a day player. And there's so much stuff that we do, like in Synchronize, which I'll explain that later, and with paperwork, that basically what we would have a day player do is go get lunch, maybe help distro, but only like certain things. Distribution. Hard copy distribution, when they send us the call sheet and it's been approved and it's been assigned, it's been signed by the UPM, or any of the paperwork that we get that needs to be distributed, that's distro. And there's the digital, which we do most of, except for scripts. Scripts are sent out by the script supervisor or a script coordinator upstairs. And but we'll do the hard copy distribution of the script, and just there's all kinds of people. We'll get into that later. But again, a day player is not going to know who gets certain things, because it doesn't necessarily go out to everybody, except for like call sheets and prelims. But some of this other paperwork, it only goes to certain people, and they're not going to know who those people are because they haven't been there. So it's just kind of, they'll clean the kitchen, restock stuff. But we try not to do that, because it's such a big job, and then we're just like spending time teaching them, which is great. I love to do that, but there's so much work to do sometimes that we don't have time for that.
Could I ask you a question, actually?
Yeah.
when you think of your day players who come in, are there certain roles or responsibilities you may give them, and then you could kind of tell by how they complete those roles if they are office material, so to speak?
Ooh, that's a good question. Uh, I think the big thing is, and this isn't just day players, but for the PAs, and I have it kind of in my notes, I want to see that they're listening to what's happening in the office. They're not just, have their music in with one earbud in and one ear just to listen to the phone, listen for the phone. Because I mean, I have full-time PAs who sometimes I'm like, did you not just hear what's happened? Like, the AD ran into the UPM's office and there's a conversation going on about something that's happening. And even though like we shouldn't be like ear up to the wall, but you listen to see if there's something that we might need to do. So paying attention is essential, because the more we pay attention and know what's happening, we can be on the ball and be ahead of the game instead of waiting and trying to figure out what's happening like 10 minutes after we should have been, getting ready for something. So yeah, if they're paying attention, that's a big clue for me.
So I just want to remind everyone that Diana's speaking about an office PA. Does everyone understand the difference between an office PA? Office PA, you should still have a headpiece on set, because sometimes the office PA does have a walkie. On room 104, our office PA was on walkie.
We have one in the office, but we don't send them to set with
Okay.
yeah, I've never had that.
So it is a different world. It is two different worlds. Like if you're trying to be a writer, really ain't like office PA is likely a better route for you, because you're going to be in that building. You go to an office, and you may be nowhere even close to set if you're not shooting on a studio lot, your studio lot that day. You may not see the production for days at a time if they're out on location. So just so you know, when we're talking set PA, a set PA is out there on set grinding for 15 hours, and then the office PA is also working, but working hard, but it's different conditions, and they can be very long days too, because you got to wait, right, you got to wait for the football to show up. You got to wait for the final reports to be delivered to the office. Ooh, I wish I knew that. So we'll work our, yeah, that's right. We'll work our way to the end of the day. Just for some variety, so we could kind of contextualize what's going on, I wanted to work with Cody's duties here, and then Noah can speak to it. And I'm going to hand the mic over, and go ahead, guys, stand up, see if the camera can pan with this. Can the camera pan with this? And we have to share this mic, but I tried to lay out a base camp where you probably have to drive or a long walk to set. And then we have the production office floating in the sky, some magical place elsewhere. So let's say we're showing up, okay, for that first shot. Let's take it to lunch.
I just wanted to get tangled. Yeah, and I'll run down this list here as well, and Brian, you can dummy check me if I'm saying something that to your ears, like maybe this term should be elaborated.
Noah's the expert.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that we may throw these terms around, and if you think something should be, if I should give a definition, then stop me. So yeah, I talked about the day getting ready at the base camp, which is you have a second AD always has to be opening the day. So the earliest call at base camp for an actor for hair and makeup, a second AD by the rules has to be there at the earliest call. So if there's no additional base camp AD, like on my pilot, I had a base camp PA, so I had to be there. If crew call was 7 a.m. and I had one actor, it took her 2 hours to get ready in hair and makeup, so we would be there at 5 a.m. So our day is starting at 5 a.m. for a 7 a.m. crew call, And I'll go quickly through the base camp duties because unless you're really experienced, you probably won't get hired as a base camp PA. You have to be basically AD level, I usually to be given that responsibility. But
right, is usually running, on most of the shows that I've done, second usually runs that base camp.
well, that's just a nice development of paying the base camp person more money. Yeah, hiring wise, I could get into this at some point of the minimum hiring requirements for a show is a first AD, a key second AD, and a second AD. Every AD after the second AD can be hired at the additional AD rate. And if a show chooses to hire them at the second rate, they're doing it because that person's worth it in their mind. So the base camp PA is, in this case, I have to sit there, I have to be present, but I'm not going to do everything on this list of the base camp duties. So they're there greeting the actors, making sure that the actors in the hair and makeup at their call time, for the actors' call time. They're going to do things like distribute the morning paperwork. So that's going to be your sides that came from the office, and there'll be a morning paperwork packet that comes, and the minimum usually every day is sides, large and small, and maybe some extra call sheets depending on what the show needs. And so the base camp person is going to check the sides, make sure that they were printed properly, if we're not missing a page, that kind of thing. In this world, a base camp transpo is going to have all these trailers and be running, keeping the trailers running. So I expect the base camp PA to be communicating with them to make sure that transpo knows what's going on, what trailers need to be ready, and what ones are done for the day, which ones are done for the day. That's the trailer breakdown. What I'm referring to there is for a show, depending on how many trailers you have, by day you're going to say which actors are in which trailer. So you have 6 2-room trailers and a 3-room trailer, and so you're going to have a little chart, and this is for transportation, for the base camp PA, for wardrobe. These are the people who care about where the actors are and what trailers. So that's something I expect base camp to be keeping up with. And let's see, just gonna skim through this again. I can go into detail if people have questions about base camp, but it's not really an entry level PA position. So now from base camp, we're getting the actors ready. The first AD's call time is always crew call, but depending on the AD, they'll be there a little early. They'll be on set before the crew call. Second AD, depending on the show, it's a half hour, an hour before crew call. So they'll be up there. And now the other thing in my expectations is if you're not the base camp PA or you're not getting something ready in base camp, like the background PA is checking people in, I want to start pushing everything to set. And that's everybody get up to set. If I see PAs, if I see day player PAs, unless they were given a task like doing breakfast orders in base camp, I wanted to see everything going forward to set. This is where the battle is. We don't need to be sitting back here kind of in your assembly area if, for going back to some military lingo. So that is kind of the flow. So now we're pushing everything up through shuttles to set. And this is where now you may have a key set PA. Sometimes I don't like to use the term. It depends on who the PAs are because it can turn into an ego trip. I can maybe expand on experiences with that. So sometimes I won't refer to it. I'll just call them a set PA, but I'll give them the duties. Also, the list here for key set PA duties, a lot of these are technically the second's job, and it is, kind of an issue of the second is delegating all that to a key set PA. The second is, depending on the show, dealing a lot with the background or has to deal with like a really specific director, and somebody needs to be by the director's side the whole time. So
can you explain a little more? Because the second, when I jumped on, I was like, wow, that second was so involved. Always by the DP, always by the director. Was like, seemed like the first AD's and man,
yeah.
Like was just executing, and seemed like our immediate team leader.
Yeah.
That's what it all felt like.
Yeah, and that is the role now to where historically, go back a couple decades, that second role wasn't a required hire, and it's kind of as the years have gone by, we've added that requirement as the guild has added that as a minimum hiring thing. but the roles are that, yeah, you're the right-hand person for the first AD. So if wherever the first AD, and this kind of gets into also, like the military, you spread out in security. They talked about in the video, set PAs, you're all spread out in lockups. But with the first AD and the second, it's a lot of wherever you are, I'm not, I'm covering somebody. So the first AD is on set with the camera, then the second is staying close to the director or DP, and vice versa. If the director or the first AD needs to step out, go to the bathroom, needs to come to village and talk, it all depends on how the crew works. Because sometimes a director is just running around constantly, and I'll have a first AD when I was a second would be like, I am tired of following that director around. You just stay next to them. And so that was my whole thing, was just stay next to the director, and anytime they asked for something, I said it on the walkie, and the first AD was going to just stay centered by the camera where the shot was happening, because that is like the center of focus. So vice versa, a first AD might hang by village because that's the director, and the first AD wants to just be by that director. So the second then has to stay by camera. Again, the whole thing is to minimize any delays, and as soon as camera's ready, the actors are stepping in and we're rolling. That's kind of the other thing, if you're really to distill the AD job, is we're just minimizing any kind of delays and finding the most efficient ways to keep the camera rolling. And as soon as the camera's ready, here's the actors, we're rolling. So.
Cody, can you talk about so we're getting ready for that first shot, and then once it's first shot, we're still shooting, we're gonna keep moving. What are some of the key calls that a PA should be listening for? Because as you said, they're always trying to keep it moving, and first you're coming in and doing the rehearsal, and then you're handing set over to the crew, and then there's the camera up, and there's like these key reports that happen over and over and over again.
Yeah.
It's a cycle. And I guess when a PA starts to understand what they're hearing, you can start to anticipate where you are in the process.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and I'll hit on a couple of things and pass over. But so on that, the things to listen to. Now the actors are landing, maybe. So the base camp PA has traveled the actors for rehearsal, and maybe as a day player or a fresh set PA, you're up there, and you're kind of milling about. You're just getting the lay of the land, and now you hear the first AD on the radio saying, or you'll probably hear first the first team PA is going to announce, hey, first team's landing. So the first AD knows that, okay, I can start the rehearsal. I can call everybody in for the rehearsal. As a PA, if you're just kind of milling about, or you went over and got a coffee and you're waiting for something to happen, when you start hearing like, okay, rehearsal's up, actors are landing, the key there should be, I should be getting into a lockup position, which is to secure the set from either noise or pedestrians walking in or crew members. A lot of sets I've been on, we want to do a private rehearsal first. So private rehearsal means the actors are going to go in, and the director, the DP, and the script supervisor, and the first AD are going to be the only ones in the set. So we're pushing all the crew out, and then we're going to, just say we're on a stage, you're going to secure all the entryways. So no crew members are wandering in, because I guess the other note is, we have 16 channels on the walkie, and we're on channel 1, but the grips are on channel 8, cameras on channel 6, electrics on channel 7. So they are not listening when we're saying like rehearsal's up. So you're calling it out as a PA, you're echoing the calls. Like first AD says, okay, rehearsal's up. The expectation is all the PAs are echoing that, and that you're near set and you're ready to help lock it up. And then, again, the other calls there would be, okay, rehearsal's up, lock it up. And at this point, it's the expectations, everybody's quiet. And then the next thing is probably that we're still rehearsing. They might say that a couple times. Then they'll say marking rehearsal. That's the next one to echo, because now we want all the crew members who need to watch the rehearsal to come into set. So we especially want the camera assistants to come in with the tape to mark it, camera operator. So now at this point, you're calling out marking rehearsal. You're pushing everybody in to watch that rehearsal. And that is going to, at that point, once we get that marking rehearsal done, put us into lighting mode. So I don't know if you have some thoughts on just kind of what to listen to.
Yeah, so every department has their heads. And so the gaffer, the chief lighting technician. You'll learn all these names that are on the call sheet, and those people generally will come in, and some of the grips or electricians or whomever may not necessarily need to go see that. So you're just saying marking or marking rehearsal so that they know to let their guys know, and so that process can start. I am going to backtrack a little bit though towards base camp, and I wanted to point out a couple things. The second AD in base camp PA, these are people, right? Background holding is going to be a place. This can happen at base camp. Usually background checks in at base camp depending on the day. I would say 9 times out of 10, you can correct me if I'm wrong, base camp is where they would go, background holding, background check-in, I should say, because they need to go through costumes, makeup, hair, right? So these are people too, but they're also stations. And so these typically have trailers, depending on the set and what's going on. So, and depending on how involved your background, if it's period piece, that kind of thing, a background PA will essentially take your team through the works here, right, through all 3 stations. And then sometimes there's approval, costumes has some stuff with that, but essentially you're getting them ready. Like I said, you're preparing for battle, and then we're getting them to set. And so background holding can happen at base camp, but sometimes generally it's on set.
I'd say usually it's on set.
Usually on set, yeah.
Unless base camp is like kind of close to set or co-located, then usually, background holding will be on set. So we get them ready here, like you said, hopefully get them breakfast. I always try to feed the background. They work better for you if you treat them well, feed them. Unless you want an angry mob. I had that on my last thing. We needed 220 rioters, so I was like, I'm going to cancel their catering truck. But anyway, background holding will usually be on set.
So would you know, as a PA, you know how important is it to know, am I on set today? Am I first team? Am I BG? Like,
Yeah.
and once you're set, that's what you're doing, right?
Yeah, and I would say usually what I'll do for what I've been doing on a bigger day where I have additional PAs, I usually have been sending an email out the night before. And I will break down what everybody's doing that day. And it's kind of a technique that some ADs do, some don't. You probably get those kind of emails. And that's on the big days. If I'm on stage, I'm not going to write it, it's staff PAs. Everybody should know what they're doing on a stage day. But on a big day where maybe I have, 6 additional PAs in addition to my 4 staff PAs, I have an idea of who I want helping to do what. Maybe there's 19 casts that day, so I'm going to have somebody helping base camp and somebody helping first team on set, because that's a lot of people for one PA to keep track of. And so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll send that in an email the night before with the copy of the call sheet, the timeline for the day, and I'll say, okay, Ryan, you're helping with first team, and then, once they're ready in base camp, you travel with them, you go to set, now you're on set, helping keep track of them. And on that note, Noah started touching on it earlier with just the etiquette of stepping on toes as a day player or a new PA, and just that fine line of kind of jumping in and helping out a lot. And then there's an etiquette to, if there's a first team PA and the first AD calls for an actor, and says, hey, I need, okay, we're ready for John on set. And you might be at craft service and John, the actor, is standing right there. But you could cause more problems right then if you start jumping in and saying, oh, I got John, because the first team PA either does know where John is and is responding even though they're not right there, and now you're stepping on them and stepping on it. If you haven't used these walkies, if 2 people try to talk at the same time, either all you hear is static, or one person gets canceled out and the other one does, and that will really frustrate a first AD. And they'll say, Noah, you're the first team PA. I only want to hear from Noah. So that's kind of something to keep in mind when you're trying to jump in and help. And so what I would say is, you're there, you're ready to respond, but you are waiting first to hear if Noah, the first team PA, responds, and he says, we're looking for John. And then you can say, I'm next to John. You want me to invite? Because that can be a thing, you got to be aware of. Sometimes, a certain actor should just not be talked to, except by the first team PA, or sometimes, I won't get into my stories here, but some shows it was only the first AD invited this actor. So just kind of being aware of some of that stuff. So you want to be helpful, but you got to know these roles and know who that PA is. And so that's something that can make you more effective as a day player, though, is if you know the PA, you know who the staff PA is and what they're doing, then you can back them up without stepping on their toes. And I think that's, an important thing of jumping in and making that impression as a day player.
This is so everyone can hear. Absolutely. When you show up, and I'll hand this to Noah because he knows better, talk to your fellow PAs and say, who's doing what? Find out who's doing what. And it is as defined as that right there, because you just don't, it's not a good look when you're asking the wrong people, who's doing what, or you're jumping in the wrong band. So just get to know right away what your fellow PAs are doing, because here's the thing, they're not all doing the same thing. That's what we're really here to communicate, is it is very specific. It's like thinking everyone on a football field just does the same things. That's not what's happening. There are positions. So can you talk to us now and point at any point, we're going to get to you, Diana. Diana's watching. The producers are watching from a distance. Can you tell me so we talked about the BG team, right? The background team, which is prepping, maybe 15, maybe 200 people and got to move them all over here. And those 2 to 3 BG background PAs, that's a team, and they just deal in their own little world. They're not ever going to go look for first team unless it's a disaster. That's enough to wrangle 200 BGs. So if you're on BG, stay in your lane. Stay with your team. Can you tell us about the set PA but especially a first team PA? Because there's some people on set that you'll talk to them and they won't even register you're talking to them. And again, you're like, what a jerk. This person hates me. You don't have no idea how many things are going through their head right now. And if they miss one call, they're going to blow it and fear for their job. So a lot of that blank stare or avoidance is because especially a first team PA is scared shitless to miss one call.
Yeah, for sure. So everybody grab your outline that Cody passed out. And we can kind of jump through here. This is a great cheat sheet. So we're skipping ahead to first team PA. Usually that's also somebody who's a little bit more experienced as a PA. So your primary duty is to watch the main principal actors, right? Anybody who has a line, a speaking role on set is considered a principal actor. It could be as little as 1 or 2 actors. It could be 10 or 12 on a really tough day. But hopefully the production has enough support for you. Sometimes they'll give you a day player to help watch the actors. And so there's a show called Castle a couple years back that I was the first team PA on. And so I got to know where Nathan's gone. I got to know where Stana's going. You kind of learn their habits. So Stana might use a certain bathroom on the lot. And so I would know if she's heading in that direction, I don't need to follow her all the way out to the bathroom, because I know that's where she's going. Nathan might go to craft service. And so he might be hanging out there, or, he was very social with the crew. So I could kind of tell that Nathan was going to be with the crew. And, so you just eventually pick up over time what the first team people do. The longer you're on a show, you kind of learn those things. So that's another thing too. The base camp PA, key, set PA, first team PA, background PA, walkie, distro PA. These are all staff positions, meaning they're generally on for the run of the show. So if you're doing season 6 of Silicon Valley, then you're generally interviewed ahead of time by ADs, and if they choose you, if you're lucky enough to be one of those guys, then you're on for the full run of show. And these responsibilities are for staff PAs, generally speaking. So jumping back on it, first team PA, they're making sure the information's passed along well. They're keeping track of actors. They're communicating with hair, makeup, wardrobe on set. So that's let's stop there. Hair, makeup, wardrobe on set. So there's something called last looks. So right before we start shooting something, the first AD might call last looks, or should generally call last looks. Hopefully they do, and you're on top of it to make sure hair, makeup, wardrobe hears that, and they're responding, saying she's okay, we don't need to do anything, or oh crap, last looks, I was needing to do a touch-up or whatever, So your job is to make sure they know that look, because if they fall behind and they aren't able to provide that hair and makeup, obviously the actor is not going to be ready, and that delays the set. Our job as PAs is to try to help the ADs keep the ball or the train on the tracks and keep things moving forward. And so that could be a hang up, then we're trying to prevent that. So we're trying to get hair, makeup, wardrobe notified ahead of time to make sure that happens. Yes. So yeah, so the comment is very true. There are interactions that you have with hair, makeup, and wardrobe, right? Sometimes they give you some resistance, or they don't necessarily need every single call. That's just kind of a balance that you build, a rapport over time that you build with different teammates, so to speak. Hair, makeup, and wardrobe specifically. That kind of plays into a bigger thing that I want to talk about is kind of mentality and perspective. And I would say the majority of the people that I run into on set are really sweet, and like you can get along with pretty much anybody, which is great. That's kind of like the mindset I try to have. But every once in a while, I'll run into somebody who's just kind of, their attitude's not very pleasant, you know, and that's going to happen a lot, especially as a PA. They could throw you shade, so to speak, and there won't really be consequences to that shade, so to speak, because you're kind of the new guy or low guy on the totem pole, right? So that shade could be thrown at you. And so I would say out of all the tasks and all the things that happen as a PA, that's the hardest thing to deal with, because you've got to be able to move past that, look past that, act past that, and not respond to that shade, if that makes sense. Have any thoughts there?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and you know, it continues when you're an AD. And I just, you know, have noticed a lot with the production is you just got to understand that a lot of times the hours we shoot and sometimes the turnaround, which refers to from when you wrap to your call time the next day is your turnaround. If you have very little turnaround and get very little sleep and you're doing that for 5 months, everybody just kind of, their attitudes just nosedive. And it's a difference. I've worked on other shows where, you know, you only shoot 8 hours a day and everybody's getting 12 hours turnaround, lots of sleep. And, you know, I've worked with the same crews and you're like, is this the same person? So, yeah.
As far as like PAs, at least with my office PAs, and I learned this from my boss, I'm very protective of my PAs. So when they get thrown shade and I know about it, and I'm not saying don't come run to me and say like, oh, somebody said this, but if I hear it and I see it, and it'll be taken care of, you know, depending on what it is. I mean, you can't take it personally either. You know, sometimes they're just in a bad mood because it's 7 o'clock in the morning and they didn't get home till 2 o'clock in the morning for whatever reason. And so it all depends, but you know, there is a level of respect that everybody should be shown, whether they're a PA or a producer.
Amen.
So what we've done so far is we've showed up in the morning, we showed up 15 minutes early, we grabbed our breakfast burrito, like, oh shit, ran back to the car, which, oh, by the way, crew parking might not be at base camp if you're on location or a studio. Day player, show up 30 minutes earlier because all of a sudden there's a traffic jam trying to get through the gate at Sony. Oh shit, you know, and then they send you to a parking lot across the studio up on the 10th floor, and it's like a half mile to walk to the stage. So keep in mind, your name's not on the gate, so you got to call Diana. Hey, exactly. Or if you're on location, crew parking could be pretty far away, and then you got to wait for a transpo van to show up. That's another lovely thing. If you're the transpo PA, you'll find a very interesting relationship with the transportation team. Some transpo love you, and some just want to make life difficult. Like, talk to my boss. Talk to my boss. She's like, can we just get another van? Talk to my boss. You know, like, oh my God. And you just got to like, this is fun. You know, this is, yeah, right. This is fun times. So, right. And everyone, you'll become friends with just about everybody. It might take 6 minutes, 6 hours, or 6 weeks. It'll eventually happen. So crew parking might be here. You hoofed it. You're downtown LA. And then you got to base camp and you showed up into the trailer. You didn't overly bother the second AD. You said hello. Oh, great to meet you. And then they go back to working on everything they're doing. You meet the key set PA, or you meet the staff PAs. They give you some batteries. You already have 2 of those headphones, you know, untangled, ready to go. I'm sorry, earpieces. You get your radio, you check it, you do a radio check. Then you're kind of standing around and they have this thing called a set kit, a Fat Max, whatever it is, this big plastic like tool case that has batteries and call sheets and sides and pens and kind of like it's an administrative kit. And that's usually like the key set PA usually is in charge of that every day. But you start to rally up probably right outside of the AD trailer. And it's like, oh shit, maybe this is a chance to make a dash and go grab a breakfast burrito. And then it's like,
grab like 2 call sheets and some sides.
grab
Throw it in
two.
your back pocket, you know.
Yep, grab 2 call sheets and sides. And this is like, I'm telling you, do this, you'll be okay. Because a lot of PAs first time out, they don't know. It's not their fault. They just don't know, like, we're getting ready to go. The vans are already pulling up. If you may have been put on van duty, if you're on van duty, you're packing vans, which is a very military thing. Okay, how many people can I get in this van? Because it's a 6-minute ride to set. And like, then, oh, hold it, first team's, you know, we hold a van for first team. And you're sitting there and then you're, you know, transpo is like, hey, they told me we got to go now. So then you're trying to like deconflict that as a lowly PA, but you're keeping people moving to set wherever they go. Or maybe you jump on that with the set kit and you're the 3 to 4 PAs that you don't know. You're just meeting them for the first time. At that time, you're finding out, hey, so, oh, okay, you're the first team PA. Now I know, you know, oh, you know, you're set PA. I'm going to be doing lockup with you. And you get acquainted with what's going on. So you, with your breakfast burrito in your pocket and the set kit and your radio and your 2 hot bricks and your 2 call sheets, you've now jumped in a van and you've head to set. You just look around, you get the lay of the land. The second is probably already there. And it's like, give you a real quick, like, okay, we're in this classroom, makeup stations are here, like quick are upstairs, and background holding is back in that room. And then you just go to work, and that's why it's important to know who your little PA teams are. And everything is moving towards that first shot. You just know it. You feel the momentum. It is just like first shot, here it comes. And take note for your own productions. This really is just like a mission, right? Just like a freaking raid or whatever you're doing. Like, there's just steps, and you move from phase to phase every single time, and it never, well, it's always the same process. Shit hits the fan, but it's always the same process. It's always the same key calls. So then we get to, you know, talent shows up, you rehearse, private rehearsal, and then marking rehearsal. By the way, if you are a set PA, you need to roll that call, rolling the call, right? Go on every channel, because you're on channel 1 and everyone else is 1 through 16, and you just go marking rehearsal, go to channel 3, marking rehearsal, go to channel 4, marking rehearsal, because people don't fucking pay attention. It's shocking. You shout it out, and that's why PAs are mirroring, because you're confident everybody on stage has heard what's going on, and then here comes one person, just with like a gigantic 24-ounce monster can, just about to walk right into the shot. How does this person not know? It happens, yeah. It happens. So that's why it's like, you gotta mirror calls, and don't be bashful to hear your own voice. You know, like, is it rude if I shout? It's like, just do it. Rolling, you know, like, just be loud and listen to what's being said to you. And then you enter the rhythm of, now you're just shooting and you're working towards lunch. You're just shooting, right?
Yeah, and I just wanted to check in, Brian, just as an AD, looking at our time left and what we want to cover. I would say a couple other things I could go over, and what Dan's going to go over, but we can go over reading the call sheet. And then I think if we still want to talk through the career, getting in, you know, in more detail of what Noah's doing to get in the DGA, how I got in. So if we want to shift gears a little bit to any of that and spend some time on that.
Yeah.
How do you want to?
So before we leave this, real quickly, everyone knows like the 30-minute or hour lunch, whatever they call. You want to just talk about Last Man, and like you're watching Last Man, because we'll just talk about getting through lunch, and then you return, and the second half of the day is the same thing. So we can just cover real quickly in like 5 minutes the rest of the production day, and then we will get into career paths. Okay.
Okay, I'll try to quickly get us off this board and back to our chairs here. All right, so base camp starting the day. Catering, lunch is what he just talked about. Sometimes it's at base camp, sometimes it's on set. That really just depends on the location and what we're doing. On stage, talent trailers are definitely at base camp. And so, yeah, we travel from base camp, you know, first team's traveling. Usually in a van if we're off location and there's a distance. Sometimes we'll walk, sometimes on a stage we'll even golf cart to set. So once we're on set, it's very important there's a hierarchy, just like the military. For our department, within the assistant directors, first AD's in charge, right? Between these two here, there is the second AD, but typically they stay at base camp. Second is the next one down, and so they usually, when we say fall up or falling up or working up, they fall in for the next person, right? So the second could cover set for the first AD if the second is at base. So set PAs.
For me as a second, I choose not to work at base. That's a style, but different people do. So I will get out of base camp, and that's part of my whole mentality of the set is the fight. So I have a little printer that fits in my backpack and my computer, and I go work within earshot of set, no matter where that is. So, but there are second ADs who will, our trailer, and you can tell what I think of them, but.
Having another AD on set is also helpful because you have another brain there, someone who's thinking. Yeah, going down the list here, set PAs, there's sometimes a key there, typically not. I mean, it really depends on the set. So even there's a subdivision here, like we talked about, staff PAs versus day players. Working trucks is not at the bottom of the list, it's just at the bottom of this list. Okay, working trucks are like G&E trucks, grip and electric, and so those typically want to be as close as they can to set, because those guys are moving hundreds, if not thousands of pounds around, and so they want to be where the action is for lighting and that kind of stuff. So
Those are when you see shoots all over Hollywood, you see five gigantic rigs, on Hollywood Boulevard. Those are the working trucks, and as a PA, you should, as a filmmaker, you should learn to be able to identify a truck by its shape, or at least you take one peek in an open door or the back of the truck, and you should recognize that gear and know exactly what that truck is, because you're going to get sent all the time to go to a specific truck to grab someone, grab paperwork or something. So that's just filmmaking 101. Like, know your gear so you can look at a truck and you know who you're talking to.
yeah, so everybody has responsibilities here as set PAs. One of them is lockups. So if this was the set, we might be at different doors, making sure people don't go into set and interrupt the shot. It's all with the intention of trying to make the director's vision and everything work. So when we have interruptions like that on set, obviously it disturbs stuff. So we're minimizing that by setting these lockups. It's also important to spread out like this too, because our voice, we're kind of like the moving megaphones of set, right? The PA system, literally. And so when the AD calls a call and we're able to communicate across the set, that's very important that we're spread out so multiple people can hear it in different parts of the set. So what else? Am I missing anything?
Last thing, can you talk about dealing with talent and knocking on doors when it's like they're ready to bring on the set and the miking process? This is the first team thing, because that is a little like they get wired. How to knock on a door, and if someone is maybe being a little resistant, just not being super cool and jumping out right away.
Yeah, I think that all goes into the minimizing the delays, and the AD brain, as he said too. I want all the ADs and PA brain on this is, do we have to put a lavalier microphone on an actor? This is going to take 2 extra minutes. So the first AD may be asking this, and the first team PA should already be thinking about it. And so it's like, should we travel an actor earlier so that they're near set, they're getting wired? So when camera's ready, we're not waiting on the wire, because that's 2 minutes. We could be waiting on a wire. And which, on a quick tangent there, just from this pilot I just did, basically we calculated, the average day was about, $28,000 for production. So, the hours and overtime, it's a different, for what hour, whether you're in the beginning, first 8 hours of the day, or you're in overtime, it is obviously different. But if you just average it as quick math, that's about $400 to $500 a minute that production is running. So if you're wondering why all these people are stressed and why the AD is stressed when he has to wait 2 minutes for an actor to get wired, it's because the UPM is standing over their shoulder. And, you just cost, you guys not anticipating this wire just, cost $800. That's 5 PAs that could have hired. So, and then just real quick on the other note, yeah, I mean, as the skill of the base camp person is knowing the actors' attitudes, and when you have to go to invite somebody, it's anticipating everything. I know whenever I knock for this actor, they want to go to the bathroom in their trailer first. So if the first AD says, invite so-and-so, and I go knock, they're going to go to the bathroom. And so it's not going to be them stepping out right away. They're going to go to the bathroom. They're going to ask a question. So what helps, from the base camp PA is a good one will be asking the first AD, do we have an estimate? Can I give a warning? Those kind of things. And those are going to minimize the delays. If and some actors, been doing it a while, they'll just tell you, I need a 5-minute warning. And that is a gold standard. And what you will knock once and you will say 5-minute warning. And you want to make sure that they respond, because that's the worst thing you can do is say something into the door of a trailer and they didn't hear you, because when you go back 5 minutes later, they'll say, I didn't get my 5-minute warning. I will be out in 5 minutes. So this is all happened. And so, that's, again, it's all about anticipating. It's helping your boss anticipate, helping the first AD. So it's knowing all these roles. You can help anticipate these issues and minimize them. So I think that's kind of generally how I would say is there will be issues getting actors out of their trailer sometimes. Communicate constantly. If you knock and actor's like, I've had it happen where it's like, I need 5 minutes, I need 10 minutes. They didn't, whatever the reason, they didn't really learn their lines. They're in there still rehearsing. But as soon as you hear that, I'm going to go, if I'm the base camp person, I'm going to go back to the first AD and I'm going to say, hey, I just knocked, I invited this actor, they just told me they need 10 minutes. And at that point, you've done your job as a base camp PA. It's not your job to open the door and pull the actor out, even though a first AD may tell you to do that. If you've communicated this, then, the right way, or there's no real good ways to deal with it, but ultimately it's a producer's role to call an actor who doesn't want to leave their trailer and tell them that they're signed a contract to do this job. So I guess would be my points I have on that.
So, yeah, I mean, you'll find all this stuff, you just can't learn it in one session. And this makes you a better director as well later. Like, how do you deal with talent? How touchy-feely or like quirks they can have. And you'll learn that as definitely if you're a first team PA, wow. Like every time you knock on someone's door, they have a different thing they do. 5 minutes, or they're gonna walk out and they're gonna say, "Oh, I forgot my glasses." It's like, how do you forget your glasses every time? It's what they do. So you got to start building this in and think of it almost as hospitality. You're just always gonna smile and you're just always gonna be pleasant. One thing I learned on room 104, there was a co-star. He was 5th on the list. And he always, before we had to go, he's like, I got to use the restroom. And we were seconds from going. Everyone was in position. We were about to roll. I was like, I got to go to the bathroom. And I said, can you just hang tight? This is a really short one. Because I was the first team PA, but I was also like there to like knock on the door and cue something. And when we got through that, the first AD walked over to me. And he said, if an actor ever lets you know that they need to use the restroom, you let them use the restroom, we'll hold. And I was like, wow, I thought I was fighting for the production. Like, let's like not let him take advantage of us again. Wow, I don't know. Okay. I mean, I guess having an upset actor who now doesn't want to work for you is worse than just holding the role or like cutting early and letting him go 10-1 real quick.
Yeah, one of the things to keep in mind too, when you're dealing with actors, they essentially manipulate their emotions all day to do their job, right? So you're trying to minimize the things that they have to go through or deal with. And so you're trying to make their experience pleasant all day. So we're serving them, we're trying to do things for them so that they don't have to worry about the logistics side of it, and they can worry about serving the piece that they're doing. They're performing, they're getting their minds tapped into this emotional state. And so if we are able to minimize all those other distractions, it's going to allow them to perform at their best.
So real quick, let's just get to what we're going to do is get to the very, very end of the day. We made our time. It's awesome. It's nighttime. You put your hoodie back on. You drank like 5 cups of espresso. It's been a great time. Everyone's going to go home soon. Yeah. What is the AD team doing, ADPA team doing at the end of the day?
Yeah. So we get that shot. The first AD will call wrap. And as a key second AD, I will say, thank you, everybody. Have a good night. And then Noah is there for another hour and a half, so he can talk to you about what they is doing.
Sure. Closing duties. Yes. So at the end of the day, if you don't know already, sets can go 14 hours, sets can go 18 hours. It just really depends on the shoot and what's going on. And so again, a lot of the things that we're working towards is to minimize that overtime and try not to kill us, so to speak, with those long, crazy hours. But yeah, so when the set wraps, ADs typically go home unless they're putting out other fires. The second typically takes the PR and finishes out the day. Sometimes he'll give that to a key PA depending on the show, but usually that's kind of frowned upon. They want an AD to finish the day out.
So that, like I said, the requirement to have an AD at the morning call, and there's a requirement to have an AD for through wrap. So till last man is out, an AD has to be present, and that's a liability issue and part of the DGA contract as a requirement. Whoever takes that, there's a wrap allowance depending on if you're on location or not, but it's for that AD on location. You just add an hour to the end of the day, because generally ADs were salary on a flat rate for the day. There's certain overtimes I won't get into unless you really want to ask me that question, but the main thing is that whatever that is, the second only gets a half hour or an hour and added to the end of the day, but they will sit there until last man is out, which these days can take 2 or 3 hours with cards downloading. But they're overseeing those PAs, are collecting all the paperwork, and then that second is finishing the PR and sending that to the office.
Yeah, so the ADs in there, in the AD trailer, generally speaking, are working from a laptop somewhere on set. They are still on the radio. They're calling out to PAs. Where you at? Who's got this? Who's got what? They're waiting for that information to hit their desk. Yes, so all the other departments are wrapping out, right? So they're packing up their kits. They're packing up their gear. They hand over their time card, which they should have gotten from us when we distributed it earlier in the day. They'll hand us the time card. That PA, right when you get it, you would say it over the radio, hey, I've got props. And sometimes the AD will be like, all right, what are their outs? And so you should know what their times are so that you could relay it over the radio. Sometimes they'll want you to take a picture of it on your phone and text it over, depending on the location and what you're dealing with. But the paperwork, there's a saying that if it's not on paper, it didn't happen, right? So that's how people get paid. So that's very important, a very important task to get that paperwork in to your AD, who then puts it on the PR. The PR goes out from there. So that's the major task at the end of the day, is making sure that the paperwork gets turned in from all the departments. If you look at the back of any call sheet, you'll see lots of different departments on here. And just quickly going through camera, sound, video playback, grip, electric, special effects, makeup, hair, costumes, those all turn in time cards. Art department's dependent. Do you know if they turn one in?
So yeah, certain stuff would be off production. They wouldn't. You'll have an on-set decorator, and they'll usually, a lot of times, they'll turn in one for themselves. It's one person, or they might add it on props as a daily timesheet. Craft service, the medic. And so usually the medic, if you're on location, will be waiting on the last person. So usually whatever department's last, you're waiting on them, and then you're waiting on the medic. Unless you're on stage, you just have a studio medic who's on the lot. But a lot of then these other ones you're not looking for are art department. You would get nothing. Construction is all off production. Locations, production office, assistants, accounting, post-production. Yeah, and so this is what departments would be turning in with it all filled out. And that's what the second AD finishing the PR needs to input everything. And the goal is to have everything on the PR to turn it in to the office. And all this paperwork is going in a football, which is our term for an accordion file. And it's labeled with the paperwork for the office. And so the idea is all the paperwork is getting filed at the end of the night. And then the AD is handing it off to a transportation driver who is taking, will drop that at the office and is usually leaving it on Diana's desk. So when she comes in the morning, she has to deal with that.
Let me grab this real quick. So we covered a lot of ground, and there's no way you can learn it all in a couple hours. But that is, again, you showed up in the morning, got your breakfast burrito, went to set, had some tough, unpleasant interactions with some people on set, but you kept smiling. You had great interactions with other people. You had lunch, worked through the second half of the day with 3 more cups of coffee, enjoyed, you know, some spectacular craft services. And then when the sun was down, you picked up all this paperwork with your PAs. You were standing around the working trucks, getting everything from the department heads. And at the end of the day, you go back to crew parking. There's hardly any cars left because you're the last ones out of there, and you drive home, and you might be coming back the next day. So that's a day for a PA and very much an AD as well. So we're going to move into, in a moment, looking at a few key things that you should know on a call sheet. Like, I don't know, there could be 5 or 6 things you should absolutely know, again, so you look like an informed production assistant. You know what's going on, and you're going to not ask questions because that information is already there. Again, the military thing, like, there's no stupid questions, but don't ask me a question if you should be able to find that on your own. Before we do that, let's everyone stand up. And real quickly, we're going to say service. And if you're not in the service, are you going to Mount St. Mary's? What and what you do, and mention if you have done any production, if you've been a PA or an AD. So for me, I'll start it off, and everyone can stand up. We'll do like a move real quick. Brian Hansen, Army, writer, director, and yes, have worked as a on 3 shows as a production assistant and a lot of day playing. Stand up and speak loud. The mic's not going to reach, but just.
Damien Evans, Air Force. I was working in China for a long time, production, doing like AD work, production manager, PA. Came back recently, now working, done some PA work for like 30 days or so on a show recently. So just getting back into it, learning how things work here. So. Oh, really? I did, yeah.
Reggie Luck, Air Force. I've worked as a PA, AD, on a number of shows years and years ago, even as a transportation captain with Darren Spelling. But that was like years ago. So a lot of things have changed since then. But a lot of background in that. And so, but yeah.
Hey everybody, my name is Andrea Pascatin. I'm Army. I've done production work. Lately, I've been doing a lot of camera work for non-union, mostly live events and corporate things. So I'm trying to go back into the film side and TV side because that's where I have more fun as opposed to watching doctors or dentists conferences. I don't know.
My name is Devon Edwards, Navy, Army, retired Air Force. I've done writer-director. I started in post. Camera, I worked in every department, PA'd and edited on feature films, television commercials, and music videos, yeah.
Andrew Aurelian, writer. I did PA work on the 3rd season of Ballers. Currently working on the new season of BattleBots. I've also done a lot of production security, so I've got a lot of on-set experience through that as well. Here on the court.
Thank you. Tanya Moore, Air Force, and I'm just getting into PA work.
Hey everyone, this is Mike DeVore, currently a student at CSUN, about to graduate in about a month. All right, nice. Go Matadors. I've done a bunch of student films, just doing PA work, so I'm just trying to get my foot in the door that way.
Hi, I'm Brenda Garcia, primarily actor and writer. I spent 6 years in the production office of Young and the Restless, daytime. This was many years ago. But I got my DGA card when I got into stage managing there. And then the first AD got sick on Denzel Washington's movie, Antoine Fisher. And so they knew I was in the DGA. And so they moved me up to second. So I got a promotion that way. So now, yeah, exactly. So this has been a nice refresher to kind of get back in on that side too.
Hey guys, I'm Mitch Bechtold, Air Force, writer and AD. Yeah.
Gonna have a fun time with this cord now. Emmanuel Maldonado, Navy. I was an office PA for HBO's Here Now, and I love doing makeup and special effects on non-union projects and student films. And art department PA was my favorite role for sure, doing a lot of set decoration and yeah, production design. So keeping it going.
Hi, I'm Joa Seidenberg. I'm a master's student here at Mount St. Mary's. I will specialize in directing and writing, and I day played for a couple of days on a feature.
How you doing? Todd Tatro, Navy and Air Force. Actor and just filmmaker. Just did a lot of short films and kind of just got it done. Yeah.
All right, how's it going? I'm Nathan Tatro, actor, writer, and just learning. So, thanks.
Wayne Santoni, Navy. I work as a production coordinator on the low budget side, so I'm trying to go up a rank up here.
Yeah, absolutely. Tony McBride, Army Intelligence Officer, writer, actor, and did some PA work on the indie student film several times, and I went to PA boot camp to Kyoto Studios and PA class with VME.
Luisa Armas, I'm a senior at CSUN, and I just worked on student films and see what happens.
Hi, Dan Belden, Air Force. I was prior DoD contractor, quit my job last year. I'm a full-time student at American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I'm just trying to crack into the business.
Terrence Ellison, Air Force. Currently working on a Netflix show right now. And I mostly deal with reality and game shows, but I have worked on a few films, which is pretty cool. And I've also script supervised, so that's pretty cool too. And the PA route on the reality side is very different from the PA route in scripted. So yeah, just be aware of that.
Jason Zadema. I was a journalist in the Navy, and I worked at Fox 5 for 8 years shooting and editing. Now I'm trying to get into as many sets as possible. Most recently, I've been gripping, PA, and I'm set decorating right now with Vet TV, learning a lot. So.
Hi, I'm Erin Bryden. I'm a current MFA student here at Mount St. Mary's. I actually want to be an underwater DP and direct, and I just directed my first short film, and actually Julia AD'd on it for me, and she was amazing. And I'm also interested in art department, so PA art department would be really interesting. Oh, well, you can do it. You can do it. I don't know where this is gonna go.
You're welcome.
Chris Cardoza, I was prior Navy, now I'm in the Army as a combat camera operator. Spent 6 years here in Hollywood doing multiple things from PA to ATO, finished with PureFlix, doing production management and budgets.
Fantastic. If anyone was listening, he's done a lot of work on the smaller budget stuff, looking to get into the bigger budget stuff, which we will discuss.
Hi, my name is Jen Kafka. I'm an undergrad here at Mount St. Mary's. I mostly like AD PA for like some of my friends' films, so I'm just here to learn more.
Hi, Ken Michaels, Navy. Television-wise, is writer's PA, television post PA. Production-wise, a mixer and a boom up. And then I'm currently
Great. Barbara, we'll call you up later. You did. You know, all three. Let's, yeah, here's our VME power trio back here. Great. Hey, Barbara, Barbara, HBO. Your experience with HBO. Yeah, Barbara will be up here before the class is over and talk to you all on the microphone. Tracy. Oh yeah. Jennifer. Great.
Hey, I'm John Scheide, Army. I am a career assistant director, so this is what it looks like. Yeah, I'm a DGA first, DGA director, and I had 863 days in my book when I turned in.
Wow. Well, John, thanks for coming out last minute. I know that you emailed us and you just saw it, so thanks for.
And I'm happy to answer any questions, and if there's time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, when we do our little Q&A, John he just told you he's been down this road and can answer a lot of questions. So thank you, John, for being here. Charles Bunce, anything to say?
No, I'm civilian, Mount St. Mary's, Department Chair. I do lots of everything, but my heart lies is close.
All right, great. So we all got to know each other a little bit. A lot of you know each other already. But again, we're here to discuss, in particular, there's a lot of different options, but really, how can you get on the path towards DGA or the other guilds? So with that, we wanted to review real quick, how can you look good when you show up on set, and look at a call sheet real quick, find that key information that's gonna save you from asking questions you probably don't need to be asking over the radio. So I'm gonna hand the mic over. And we're going to be able to follow along a little bit. Is it the same call sheet?
Yeah, we're gonna go.
Okay.
We're gonna go with the Fosters. You got your packet. Yeah, just looked through them. I kind of like the layout of those Fosters ones. I think it has enough of the information that we can cover it, and then the other ones are different variations. But so if you want to pull out the Fosters one, and I'm gonna just move through this pretty quick so that we leave time for some Q&A and workshop and some resumes, I think was on the agenda. So yeah, so and then yeah, she'll get into some of the stuff they're looking at. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and say this will be fast, and I'm not gonna get into everything on this call sheet, but I will kind of make this a how do you read this quickly, because there's a lot of information, and so what can you focus on first? And so I would say when you get a call sheet, the first thing you're gonna look at the top is the box with crew call, and that's gonna be the first time you wanna take note of. It says on the Fosters, it's a 12 p.m. crew call. And so there's a lot of other stuff around that, but I'm going to ignore it for now. I'm just say, okay, I got a 12 p.m. crew call. I'm going to now immediately flip it over to the back, top left corner, and if I'm a PA, I'm looking for my call time, and this is just human nature. I'm not saying, it's, you want to find out what your call time is. So crew call is 12 p.m. That is usually when we're starting the
the day with a rehearsal. And that's when the director and the first AD are on the clock. And that's kind of what everything revolves around. But a lot of people, including the PAs, are coming in before that. So you flip over, and let's just say you are TBD, because, you know, that may be what the call sheet says, because the call sheet's already gone out and I'm still trying to hire a PA, and this is how you're getting your first call to come work, because I have 30 names in my phone and I go through it, you know, texting everybody, are you available, are you available, are you available, are you available? And whoever responds first is the one that comes in. So TBD, you are in at 10:12 a.m. That is, you know, an hour and 42 minutes before crew call. Let's flip it back over. I haven't got an email from the second AD yet, so I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm trying to figure out, why do I have a 10:12 call time when crew call is 12 p.m. So now we can start scanning through some stuff, and I'm gonna try and just describe the sections, and then I'll jump in. At the top where crew call was, this is like your higher headquarters information, your light and weather data, you know, director. So, you know, yeah, maybe I'll take note of who the director is, so I know if they're saying, you know, we're looking for Bradley, where's Brad, where's Bradley? You know, you're gonna just hear that 100 times on the radio. You're like, why do they just, oh, we're looking for the director, got it, okay. The next section you have is this is the kind of meatiest part of the call sheet. This is the work for the day. So we have scene, one column is scene, we have set and description, cast, day, night, pages, notes, and locations. So the first thing I'm going to look at actually is going to be notes and location. Now, am I shooting on a studio lot? Are we on location? Here's where I'm going to get this information. The address here or note is going to refer to the actual set. It's not going to be crew parking or base camp. You know, this address on here or stage number is referring to the set. So this is where you know where I need to be. You know, when we're rehearsing scene 32, you know, I should be up here at, you know, Craner Avenue, North Hollywood. And so that's a key information from that block. Now, you have the scene numbers, you have the set description, and then you have a short description of the scene. All this stuff was pulled from the first AD's one-liner, so the first AD is usually the one who wrote this little description. The cast numbers are going to then refer you to the next box down, where you have your list of character names and cast members. Day, night, as a day player, you have very little care of that, because that's referring to the script day or night, and that's going to apply to hair, makeup, wardrobe. You know, the first AD and the second AD are going to be worrying about that, but, you know, skip over that for now. Page count, you're not so worried about that, but if you look at the page count, you can kind of tell this is a big scene, we're going to be on it for a while, or this is a short scene, we might do it quicker, unless it's stunts, and it might take all day. So now I'm still trying to figure out, why am I at 10:12 a.m.? I'm starting to look and scan around. Is it background? So the block here, we have cast, and we have a lot of cast times here to look at, which is going to concern the base camp PA, the first team PA, the second AD. Also, we're going to have a box which is stand-ins and background, and next to that is notes. And then just to cover the last block down here, we have an advanced schedule. This is going to be what is on the schedule for the following day, and it's going to list all this same stuff that, you know, will later, you know, will be cut and pasted into the, you know, that earlier paragraph. This is the same thing, you know, scene descriptions, numbers, that stuff. So just kind of back to how we're reading this, I'm looking at, am I helping with background? The calls for background, the earliest call is 11 a.m. So I probably don't have a 10:12 to help with background. But as I scan across this, I start seeing there's an actor who has a report of 10:30. And that's the earliest hair and makeup call that I'm seeing on this call sheet. So as TBD, it looks like I am somehow in to help with that. And since there's a DJ trainee, Anjalil, at 10:12, she probably is running base camp as a trainee. So she's in for that actor. And if there's another set PA in, I'm probably going to have to get breakfast orders. Is now what I've just decided, is probably my job for that day. And I'm going to wait, but at least now I have it in my head that I'm probably coming in to help with breakfast orders. So maybe if I can, I'm going to see, this call sheet doesn't have it. On the ones I do, I will have at the top, I will have, because I do a lot of location stuff. So I've got the crew parking address, the base camp address. I don't know if one of these call sheets has it. The show name logo one has an example. If you just reference that, it's base camp address, crew parking / catering. Okay, so in this case, I now know that catering is at crew parking. So I may have to be getting breakfast orders from catering at crew parking and send them to base camp for an actor at 10:30. So that is just, yeah. So this is an example where, I would put the addresses in. So now this is another way to read the call sheet. But if it's not there, a map may be emailed out with the call sheet that also has those information and shows catering, shows base camp, shows crew parking, shows set, and all these different places, all probably like 10-minute shuttles around. So that was like a really down and dirty, fast reading of a call sheet to figure out what you're going to do. And that's kind of like my recommendation for as a day player, but also as a set PA. I sometimes, like I was saying, I will send an email out the night before where I, in prose writing, tell everybody what they're doing. And then other times I won't, and I will just send a text to the set PAs and be like, read the call sheet and figure out what you're doing. And that's my expectation of a staff PA is, everybody knows their standing orders. And I expect an AD and a PA, a staff PA, to take a call sheet and be able to execute the plan, even if I'm not present, to tell them what they're doing. That they should be able to read the call sheet and, they know, okay, when the background's in. And what you start seeing here, to get a little more into it, you look at the cast numbers for each scene, and now you're going to look at, okay, when these cast members are in, and so that's when they need to be on set for that scene number 32 if we're going to rehearse. And then I'm looking at this, those people are all going to stay on set probably to rehearse the next series of scenes, 34 part, 36, 38 part, because it's the same actors. And here's where you start to look at the night one. It's the same night, so that means there's probably no costume change, no hair and makeup change. So that means we can keep everybody up there. But the next thing I'm looking at is scene 29 part is a whole new group of cast. We're keeping cast member 13. So now this is, for the ADs on set and the base camp PA, we're starting to think about, as we're finishing scene 38 part, that second strip, this is, we'll call a strip because it's a strip on a one-liner. So we're now going to think about, okay, we're about to move on to 29 part. I need a bunch of actors now. We need to be helping the first AD anticipate who they need for rehearsal. Does the first AD want them up there waiting to rehearse? We try to time it so we're not burning actors, but maybe if it's a travel, we're going to ask them to come up and be on set when we're rolling on the last shot, so that we're rehearsing 29 part, with little delay. I will think about this a second. I'm going to pass to is there anything on reading the call sheet you would highlight?
I guess the main thought would be there's a lot of information here, right? So just kind of the overview thought. When you have moments on set where nothing's going on because it's a hurry up and wait game, pull out the call sheet and study it. I mean, the first few times I looked at a call sheet, I was overwhelmed, but I didn't realize that this is something that essentially sets you up for the whole day. Like, this is the game plan. This is the thing that we're trying to accomplish today, and a lot of the information is there. Something Brian said earlier too that stuck out is the thought of, don't ask a question if you can get that answer from the call sheet. Like, that's very important. It takes up less time from your interactions with your AD. If you ask a question that's on the call sheet, it kind of shows that you're a little green, because you can get that information from that call sheet. So
if are there
3 or 4 things, again, just a real quick, if there's 4 things that someone needs to look at and just be aware of, what would those 4 things be? So everyone take notes on this, please.
Yeah, and I would just say real quick on that is, I don't want to scare people away from asking questions per se, but maybe don't ask the key second AD first. If, I would say, this is back to kind of some early strategies is if you're a day player, you're new on set, is like scope out the other set, the staff PAs, see who's least grumpy. And, and then if they all look grumpy, I would go after the walkie distro PA he's, they're usually the greener one of the staff PAs, but, they can clue you in on stuff. And so maybe ask them first. If it's like, I don't know what this term is, or everybody keeps saying like, hey, we need a, DL on set. Where's DL? It's you're kind of like, you're trying to figure out who's DL, and it's like, oh, it's the initials for David Lambert, because we never refer to that actor by name, So anyway, I would like find a PA who seems friendly and go to them first with questions, before you hit up the keys. But again, I'm approachable as long as, I'm not in that first morning of the before crew call. I'm happy to answer questions, but I would say your main things are, I would say, if you're helping with background, you're looking, is there somewhere where it already tells me where background changing and all this stuff is? And on this one, it's under locations, under notes. It says BG changing at base camp, bathroom trailers times 2. These are this note is for the locations department, but you can say, okay, BG is going to change at base camp, and this one doesn't maybe call out where background holding is. So then I've looked around, I've read it, it's like, okay, it doesn't tell me where background holding is. It's not a dumb question to ask the background PA, or to get up on set and ask the key set PAs, like, hey, did they, have we identified a background holding? Like, where is it? Can I go scope it out? So, there's that. The other things, stand-ins, that's kind of a thing, an easy thing to kind of help out, because stand-ins are not on radio. They'll be close by listening for, rehearsal, marking rehearsal, they need to be there, or moving on as another term, or so moving on is like, we're going to do a new setup or new deal. A lot of, depending on how long an AD has been working in the business, they'll use different terms, but that'll be something all the stand-ins are listening for. So if you're echoing, that helps them be on set and ready. But it's kind of like knowing who they are can help. And that brings me kind of to the back, I guess, in reading it. Another thing I tell people, as a green PA, if you don't know what to do to be helpful, is be reading the back of the call sheet, and again, find that PA, that probably the distro PA, because they're also going to know everybody on set. And you, in calmer moments, can say, hey, which one's the DP? I see it's, Keys Van Oostrom. Can you point that one out to me? And the best thing a day player can do is start learning who everybody is on this call sheet. That might be somebody the first AD is asking for, is like, hey, I need Steve on set. I need Steve. You're just going to hear this, and you're not going to know who Steve is. And that's all they're going to say. And you're just saying, Steve, and on some sets, that is, that's the most helpful thing you can do, is just, Steve, and there's going to be 3 Steves on set, and, they're all going to turn. But, in this case, I'm talking about the key grip, Steve Robertson. So that is another thing. An easy thing to just do is take your call sheet and just be going, and you just have it out. So when the ADs are like saying, hey, I need is Jennifer around? Get me Jennifer. He's talking about the makeup. So knowing the names, because the point I'm getting to is that without even getting on the radio and responding and stepping on the staff PAs or the ADs who are trying to respond, you can be moving around. You say, I just saw that person walking over to Crafty. I'm just gonna kind of float that direction, because if everybody keeps saying, I haven't seen him, then finally you can chime in and say, yeah, I got the DP. They're over at Crafty. Do you need them? And suddenly you're like, the hero day player who knew who somebody was. So if you're just sitting in a lockup and not doing anything and eating your breakfast burrito, 3 hours into the day, you might not make a good impression. But it's another quick way on this level of production where, because we talked about in the video, part of the hard thing on this level of production is sometimes the expectations are so little, and if you fall into that only doing the lockup and echoing the calls, you might not make an impression at all. You might not be a bad PA, but you may not just make any impression at all. And if you want to make an impression, and you're kind of basically just trying to scratch out like a little way to make an impression without, making the bad impression. So that's, I think my other note on reading it is just learning people's names. And, if you're listening to the radio for names, you have your call sheet out and you're reading the back and saying, okay, I'm starting to figure out who people are and who the main people, and that's another thing you'll get a vibe on a set is that there's certain people you're always looking for. Some shows it's the DP, or some shows the DP's on a radio and you never have to look for them. Or other shows, it's the script supervisor, and it's just a personality thing. So it's, that's kind of a thing you can listen up for.
Yeah, so the director for sure, your team, which is the ADs, PAs, know who all those folk are. Director, DP, and your actors, right? So you want to know who and where all those people are. And then secondarily, stand-ins are good for moving on. We're done with that shot. Usually that's assigned to somebody where they watch over those stand-ins specifically, so that's helpful. But as a PA, you want to play to your zone, but you're also paying attention to everything else that's happening so you can help out, right? So if you're the background PA, you're typically focused on those background, right? But you can also help get second team on the set. Sometimes you'll be watching first teamers depending on the situation. Yes, first team is your principal actors, the people who have lines, the talent that's in front of camera. Second team, which is sometimes a taboo term, depending on the AD you're working with. Second team are the stand-ins, right? So somebody who's sitting in for that person while they're getting ready in hair and makeup and they're rehearsing lines. And what was the other one?
Just the stand-ins. If someone hasn't worked on a show, like stand-ins are such a real, it's real. It's not even a luxury. There's someone that matches the size, the height, the skin complexion, everything of your actors that are in for the day, and they go by their first name. It'd be like, hey, has anyone seen Aaron? Where's Aaron? Because Aaron needs to be standing on set right now as the grip, the G&E team and the camera team gets him framed, doing all the work, and that Aaron he's a stand-in. He's gonna stand there for like 20 minutes, and that's what he does, and he's there every day. So they're treated like crew. They're part of the family. So just know when you hear second team, where you see these people that look like actors, but they got these like little beach chairs. They're like walking in. They're like, that's the stand-in. Those are the stand-in right there. And it is, it's not a luxury. It's a very real thing. They'll be there every single day, and that's second team.
That's all they do. I've got half a dozen friends that they'll do background every once in a while, but they are like professional stand-ins. That's what they do. And sometimes it depends on the DP. Sometimes they don't have to exactly match, but just close enough. And there are others who are like, I want them to have the same hair color, the same hairstyle, the same, everything, same complexion. One of my friends was standing on Bones, and she was not allowed to like tan at all. Like she played softball, and she was like lathered up, 90 degrees. She's got long sleeves on and everything. And yeah, another show that I worked on, it was just like, oh, she's 2 inches shorter than the actor. They just put her up a little bit. It's, yeah. But they're family.
Side note too, for anybody who's wanting to be in front of the camera, an actor, a decision as minute as like a 2-inch difference can be the difference of whether you get a part or not. So it could be completely not to do with your acting capabilities. It could be your skin tone. It could be your hair, or it could be something specific that we wouldn't think is a big deal, but to the entertainment world it is. One of the things I wanted to double back to is the chair, right? So that's a giveaway for a stand-in. There are kind of certain things that give people away for their roles on set. Their tool belts and different things. So as a PA, one of the things that should give us away is batteries, right? So we should always have batteries. We should always have pens and Sharpies. There we go. So those are things you got to have on your tool belt, so to speak. You don't necessarily need a tool belt. Oh yeah, and the headset, that's also something you'll need or want to have. Those are definitely requirements to have when you get to set, so you're not asking somebody, hey, can I have a pen? That's a giveaway of being green and being new. Real quickly, I want to give a shout out, again, my buddy Justin, he's running camera, my friend Rav in the back. Thanks guys for hooking us up. They also both PA. Justin for Lifetime, Rav's on a show. Can I name the show? Yeah, Westworld. He's on Westworld right now. So Rav and I did an hour-long interview for a YouTube channel that I run called Hacking Hollywood. So shameless plug there. I do videos tailored to talking about what we're talking about today, being a better PA, growing in that. And so we had an awesome conversation that's similar to this. So if you want to check that out, just YouTube search Hacking Hollywood. Oh yeah, American Horror Story. Yeah.
Hacking Hollywood, Hacking Hollywood. So what we'll do real quick now is review, just so you can get eyes on the different forms, okay? And just call it out. We don't need to really get super deep into it at all. Let's just look at something and say, hey, that's an Exhibit G. So if it's ever called out, you're like, I saw it once. And it's all in your packet, right? So take it home, look at it, study it, memorize it. How many forms do you have? About 5? Okay, I'm going to hand it over to the pros, but let's just do this real quick, and then we're going to talk career trajectory.
Yeah, Exhibit G, it's a big thing. This is the time card for the actors, basically, is what you need to know. So Basecamp PA, AD fills it out. AD has to sign it, send it to the office. It gets a lot of scrutiny from accounting in the office. This can be a lot of money involved with, 2 minutes on some of these times. So, yeah.
Sign it, make sure they sign it.
Yep, the actor has to sign it when they're done. The stunt people will always want to take a picture. Sometimes that's a no-no, depending on your show. Yeah.
And just make sure that all the information's on there. Like you got what day, the correct day is the correct.
Yeah.
That's what we look for in the office when we get it.
Yeah, just a major skill set of the ADPA is just attention to detail. So, we haven't really got into that, but it's a lot of paperwork, and that's part of getting to the union level is the paperwork requirements, and that, you know how to fill it out. You're checking it to make sure it's filled out properly, and that's the expectation of the ADs on set, is that you're reviewing all this paperwork. You're the first eyes before it goes to the office, to minimize the amount of work the office is doing, trying to track down answers and fixing things, which they will then call you and bug you all day in a nice way to get all those answers.
That's a daily timesheet. We talked about that. That's filled out by all the departments on set. And that's turned in at night. If you don't turn it in, then yeah, if you don't turn if they don't turn the daily timesheets in at night and get it to the ADs, then we call you in the morning, bright and early, and send angry emails, nice angry emails. So that's that. And that's daily. This is your weekly at the end of the week, or if you're a day player, you fill it out that day. That's the crew time share. And there's different ones for different companies, payroll companies. Oh yeah, there's lots of paperwork to fill out.
When you day play, you'll do start paperwork. So just bring a pen. You'll keep it on you, and on your downtimes, you just keep filling out like these 50 pages of repeated, every kind of form 100 times. But yeah, they'll say, hey, did you fill out your crew time card at the end of the day? And you should, it helps. You've seen it. If you haven't seen it before, you know what to look for. It might be laying in the AD office. It might be laying there in a stack. That's why just being familiar with these things. Sides. Yep.
So everybody, okay, no, it's okay. Okay, so these are your sides. We talked about those. I think everybody got some. There's big ones and small ones. If you have small ones, hold them up. So they're half sheets, basically. And that is what's shooting that day. And that's why you have part of the call sheet on there. So you can see what scenes. You can see over here, those are all the scenes that are in there that they're shooting that day. And then as you go down, you will see that, like here, they're not shooting scene 14, but they're shooting 13. So we do like this little zigzag saying that's not the part that you need, that they're reading. And depending on the AD or the director, sometimes it's the actor, sometimes it's in scene order, in like chronological order, like, you know, scene 3, 7, 14, 23, that way. Other times it's in the order of the shooting order, where it's like scene 33, then 17, then 2, you know, and it goes by, that can vary. It's very important for us to get the sides right. Because especially if they're on location and we missed a scene, something's not in there, it's not easy. They're easy to do, but it's not easy to do it quickly. This takes about an hour to get it together and print it out, print all the ones that are needed. Maybe not an hour, maybe like half an hour, but but there's a lot that goes into it. Luckily, we have this lovely program from Entertainment Partners called Synchronize, and it breaks down the schedule for you, and you can pull your scenes that you need, and it redacts whatever you're not shooting, and you make a little packet and you just shoot it out, and it'll even do double up sides for you. With my PAs, I get very particular about how the sides, the small sides are cut. I don't like them to be sloppy or stapled badly. It's one of my last PAs. He's like, well, when I was on set, you know, we'd get crappy sides all the time, and I'm like, does that make it right? No. And you know, and here we do them right. It's very easy to cut them nicely and cleanly and evenly. It's 11 inches across, it's 5.5 down the middle, and every cutting board has a tape measure on it. So and that helps them out too, and it just makes us look better. So yeah, those are sides. Yes. Yeah. If you stack the two sides, they will match perfectly, because I'm a little psycho about that. But sometimes they don't have to be exact for my PAs, but yeah. So what else? This is a shooting schedule. So shooting schedule is what they're going to be shooting day by day. And throughout the, wait a minute, but it's not a one-liner. Wait a minute. Hold on.
This is something an office PA is more likely to come across.
Yeah, this is, well, no, set PAs will have, yeah, this is, yeah, so, Exhibit G. What else? I think this, yeah, because I thought this was, there's a shooting schedule which is in order, and then you've got your one-liner, which I don't, which you guys, yeah. Some of you that have gone to some of the schools call them, what's it again? Strip board. Yeah, we call them one-liners. And the way you have them is the way we print them up, but we don't get them that way. And then the dudes, the day out of days, are on the back also. So when those are given to us, yeah, I don't have that one pulled up. But when they're given to us, the cast member list is what's first. And then you've got the one-line schedule, and the dudes are completely separate in a different document. And we put them together and squish it a little bit, because we have to have room for the 3-hole punch and shift it to the right. It's a whole process, but most copiers now, you can program it and it's beautiful. Back in the day, it was, when I started, it was uphill both ways, no shoes. What else do we have? Okay. I think that's it for, yeah. And then when I start talking about my stuff, I'll get into it more.
For the shooting schedule, if you're the background PA, that will be helpful for you in the future to kind of get a ballpark of extras breakdown, yeah. So you can get a ballpark of when you're going to have heavy days of background. So that's something to look ahead to.
So do we want to move on to careers or?
Yeah, let's talk. Yeah, yes.
Okay, if you pull out.
Here.
That's going to be your background.
It says Outlaws on it.
So skins are going to come from the background casting agency. A lot of stuff in town here is going to use Central Casting, if you've heard of them.
This particular one's Rich King Casting.
Yeah, so that's a different one. But basically, you get all your background vouchers in a packet each day, and each morning with the packet of vouchers, which the voucher is how you pay an extra background player. The skins are going to be just a document that has everybody, all the names of the background and what category. If we got 1 bartender, we got 10 patrons, we got 2 waiters, and it's going to have the people's names, their call times, usually. And so that is something for the background PA. The second's going to want a copy, and you got to distro them to usually wardrobe, props, people who are going to be given stuff to the background and are going to later want to know, hey, who is this person? They may use them to mark off, I gave this person, a shirt, so that I'm going to get it back. But that's what skins are.
And then this is your extras breakdown. This is almost all of this is made by the AD and first and second ADs. And the extras breakdown that gets sent to Central Casting or Rich King, and it gets sent to different departments, especially costumes or wardrobe, makeup. Especially if it's a period piece, if they need to hire more people, it goes to maybe key set PA, so he knows how many background are coming in, and they use this to know what they need to prep for. With the background alone. And like there's one day they're on here that's 54 extras, which that's a lot. That's a lot of background. I worked on a movie, we had anywhere from 75 to 150 background every day. And it was a period piece. So, and that's a lot to deal with. And there are a lot of, did you just start crying? There's a lot to do, a lot of things to take into consideration with that. And sometimes if you've got a whole mess of background, you have to bring in like more catering, like a whole nother second catering. That happened to me on Mad Men, where they had catering just for background, and they had catering for everybody, crew and cast. All right, what else?
Yeah, that background is no joke. Those skins, thanks for bringing that up. If you're coming in as a day player and you get attached to background, cozy up to your the PA, the staff PA that's handling background most likely, and just be familiar. Like, hey, go grab the skins from the front office, or skins, got it. You heard it here, okay? Like, got it. And it's going to come in from EP or some sort of extras casting coming. It's going to be probably an envelope with like an individual voucher for every single background actor that's coming in with their name.
This was from Fear the Walking Dead, and it's like Outpost extras, Convoy Militia. It's like they have a certain amount of different people. You got the drivers.
And that takes so much. You can see that takes so much attention, and you got to wrangle them all the way to set at some point. So that's why you're not dealing with the first team. You're not dealing with first team. You're dealing with background, especially on a big day like that. So what we'll do now is we'll dive in and do we're gonna do 15 minutes here of just understanding the path, okay? Your path, as all of our experts here have experienced it. We have a DGA trainee. That's how Cody was able to join the DGA. Then we have Noah doing the 600 days or the 800 days, right? I mean, that you really got to stay on the ball and be motivated for a long time. Then Diane, I'm not as familiar with your guild, but you will please tell us about it and just give us a quick idea in like, 5 minutes or less each of you, what it takes, when you knew you wanted to do it, and how, again, the amount of detail, attention to detail, and how serious you have to take it. Because I know if you slip up and you lose 6 months of work or a year of like pay stubs, that hurts. That hurts, especially if you're trying to collect 600.
Luckily, I did not have to do that as a DGA trainee, so that is one of the advantages. If you're thinking about this and you've heard of the DGA trainee program and you're thinking of applying, or I will talk about it and you want to look it up, you can go Google it and you can get the detailed stuff. So I will point you to that for some of the specifics, and I'm going to try and not get into that. I'll just tell you kind of quick my experience with the DGA program, and maybe you can decide if this is something that interests you, and we can talk more later on about the program. But from my experience, I got out of the Army, got off active duty in 2010. I started PA work in DC, quickly got into non-union AD work while in DC, and after a year moved to San Francisco, started all over, PAing and second ADing, not working a lot there wasn't a lot going on. Then moved to San Diego in 2012, and once I moved to San Diego, I was working in LA a lot doing the non-union AD work, and that can take a lot of days. It's 400 non-union because I was first ADing, or it's a little less, I think. I'd have to go look it up. There's other ways to get in as a non-union first AD or a non-union second AD, but it's very hard to get days that count. So I knew of the DJ trainee program. I applied for it and got in 2013, July of 2013, exactly 3 years after getting off active duty. So the trainee program is, it basically is the guild's main way of getting second ADs into the guild, and it's arguably the fastest way once you get accepted to get in and join the DGA. You'll hear about what Noah's doing, and it's a little bit of a longer process usually the way it works out. But there's an LA DGA trainee program and there's a New York program. So I got into the LA program, and there's also a commercial program which is very small in both LA and New York. I did not do that one. So if you look up the DGA trainee program, the basics of it are you're going to do 400 days working on set as a DGA trainee, and once you've completed 400 days, you will be, along with some other requirements, eligible to join the DGA as a second AD, and that's your category. And in that category, I can work as a key second AD, a second, or additional second AD. And I can move back and forth, at will if people will hire me in those categories. And the DGA program, if you're interested in it, will own you just as much or more than the military did. And that is, not, I can't even really, overemphasize that they own you. You're expected to move and live in LA. You will, you have to ask permission to leave LA County. You are expected, if they call you for anything and you miss the call, you're expected to return their call within 30 minutes. So, one, my wife and I lived in San Diego. I had to get a waiver permission basically to keep living in San Diego and coming to LA for work. I also like to surf, so I would have to email them every time I wanted to go surf for more than half an hour to say, I'm be surfing from 10 to 11 a.m. And, in that case, they would not give me a letter of reprimand if I did not return the call in 30 minutes, or they would know that, they'll call me, after 11. But so that is kind of just the seriousness of how the program owns you in that respect. They also own you in the respect that they're going to get all the work for you. You cannot find any of your own work to get those 400 days. You are not allowed to work as a PA once you're in the training program, and you're barred from working as a set PA. So if you were a set PA before and you have all these contacts that are calling you, they find out you're trying to go moonlight and work as a set PA, you will, if not be kicked out right away, because they're so strict on this, you'll get a letter of reprimand and go in front of the board. So that is all the kind of cautionary stuff about it. I said the pros of it are that they are finding the work for you. So you are getting introduced to these sets, and they're putting you and rotating you for your 400 days. They're putting you on a show for 50 days at a time usually, and then rotating you, or they're day playing you as a trainee, so that you're just dropping in for a day or two here and there. So you are in 400 days getting moved around to a number of different shows, working with usually 4 to 8 different DGA ADs on a show. So if you extrapolate that, I come out of the trainee program with 30 contacts of ADs who don't just know my name. I've worked with them extensively. And so that is kind of the best thing about the program, is it grows your network. It took me 3 years to complete the program. 2 to 3 years is 2 years is the goal, and 3 years has been the reality, and some people take longer. So I was still in the National Guard at that time, and they are understanding in the respect that you're required to do that. So, but what we do is I would give them my drill schedule, and I would basically, if you do have to leave, you have a family emergency, you're trying to do something, you put in a request to leave. They have a whole system and a document. So for every drill weekend, I would just put in the details of it, and it would always be approved for drill. Like if I want to go to a wedding in Missouri, they may deny that request to leave for a weekend. If it's a drill weekend, it's a bylaw requirement that for employers to allow you to go do that. So, and they do like the military. It was, I think, a big reason I got in on my first try. A lot of people will apply to this program, and some of my classmates, it was their sixth year in a row. They only do one application a year. It was their 6th year applying to the program to get in. I got in on the first time, which, one of the reasons I attribute is they do like military, so that is a check mark, a plus check when you're going through the application process. And there's always a couple military people. There was another National Guard reservist a year below me, Tristan Riganoldis. He's out working now. So they do work with that. The other thing the program does, there's a seminar once a month that you're required to attend. So that's on a Saturday. And another boon of the program is they're doing stuff like this that lasts about 6 hours every Saturday, and it's getting even deeper into each of these things. So as a trainee, you're armed with all this information, and it'll be one weekend on setting background. It'll be one weekend on running base camp. It'll be one weekend, on this other stuff. And they also make you go do other things. Go shadow a post-production for a day. You have to go work as a background extra for a day to see what it feels like to be an extra. So it kind of forces you out of your comfort zone in some respects, and gives you a lot of context. So it's a great program. It's the fastest way to get into the DGA. Like I said, it took me 3 years to get my 400 days. And the only other negative I will say is that you're waiting for them to work, so you have to be prepared financially to weather months. Sometimes I think 2.5 to 3 months is the longest gaps I had, but some people went 4 or 5 months sometimes not getting a paying gig from the DGA, from the trainee program. And that's when things were really scarce. There was I came in as things got busier. It's continued to be busy, but that is a challenge for some people to, the National Guard helped me financially, still getting some drill money, being married and having another income, but you have to factor that in, and they try to help people with some money in ways, and they will allow you to take other work. And again, it's a process of requesting. They'll let you go work as an office PA, but not a set PA. So if you have an office, contact, you can say, hey, can I go work? But the problem is you also have to have a job. These days, driving for Uber or Lyft actually is a decent thing, because basically at a moment's notice, if you get called to be on set tomorrow, you have to walk away from whatever job you're on, unless you put in a request and you got permission to do a couple days of some work to make money. It's a small program. That's a lot. I'll try to move on now. They usually accept about 8 to 14 people a year. I think that's been the norm in recent years. In the heyday, it used to be about 24, I think. And then out of my class, I think about a quarter or a third dropped out or got kicked out. And we graduated about 7 or 8 of us finished out of my class, like 11 or 12. So, yeah, it is. I definitely highly recommend it, but with caveats of just know what you're getting into, talk to people who've been trainees, read about it online, and see if it's something you're interested in if you want to become a DGA second AD.
Here's another route.
Yeah. So you can, DGA training program is by far, I would say, the best way to go, from my opinion as well. If you're able to sign up for that program and get accepted, really, what did you say? I think I heard a number once, 8,000 applications a year roughly, and only, 10 or 14 or so.
I think it's like 2,000, but yeah, I mean.
Okay, yeah, it's a lot.
12 people got accepted out of like 2,000 applicants, so.
Yeah, it's a lot. So I applied 1 year and got to interviews. I thought about applying again, but for me personally, just like with life, there's priorities, right? My number one priority in my life is God. Then it's my family, and then it's work. And so that kind of priority shift is going to be different for everybody else, right? So depending on what you have in your life, if you have kids, if you have family, there are going to be different things that weigh differently in how you just choose to live your life and do your thing. So if some of you don't have religious ties, if some of you don't have strong family that you have to spend and dedicate your time to, you can advance a little bit faster, which is kind of all depending on what you guys decide to do. So for me personally, I have straddled the line between being an AD in the non-union world and getting my PA days. You need, like what's been said, you need to collect 600 call sheets that you've been on with your pay stubs, and essentially that's called a book. So you collect a book. It's a binder that you turn into DGA. Our friend in the back probably knows way more than I about that. So I'm on my journey of completing that book, about 400 days in or so now, and I got 180 or so days as an AD non-union. So I'm just waiting for the calls to come in, depending on what's going on in my life and what's happening, to whatever book gets completed first. I'll submit that with actually more than 600 days or more than 400 days, because they tend to decline a few days and say that they don't count, which is why 800 was submitted before. So that's kind of a thing to keep in mind. You have to be organized. You have to have your stuff together. Another big picture kind of thing is to be an AD, or some of the skill sets that are needed to be an AD. Number one is detail oriented, right? So you got to pay attention to all the details that we have with all this paperwork and all the things going on. Number two, a calm, collective attitude no matter what the situation is, right? So you could be in the middle of a shouting match, or you could be being the one being yelled at, or you could be in a scenario where tensions are high. And one of the things that it's not a necessity, but will make you stand out is if you can stay calm in that situation no matter what's happening, right? So to keep a rapport, to keep your attitude, to not be influenced by those things to escalate it even more. Those are qualities that are going to kind of help set you apart as a PA working towards an AD. Yeah, sorry, tangent, but yeah.
So, I think real quick on your route would just be first area aspect of it. There is a commitment to once you get your 600 days, this base got to move out of LA, go work third area. If you can mention that quickly, but the key thing to realize is this is a 3 to 5 year process. If you're really committed, even the DGA trainee program, right? It's a college commitment. It's an enlistment. It's not just for everyone out there. If you're really looking to get into the DGA then Diana's going to speak to her union. This is a real commitment. And if you're starting to pick off days right now, keep those pay stubs paid, because when you decide to get serious about it 2 years from now, you're like, oh my God, 200 days, I can't tell you what happened to them. You just cost yourself 2 years, straight up. So, and the other thing to keep in mind is like, so why is it important to say yes? If they're like, you want to staff on a show, because that might be 90 to 120 days that you're going to get in your back pocket right there. How long does it take day playing? Well, 1 day a week, 2 days this week, no weeks. So if you're really going to be serious about it, you gotta like start doing the math, the calendar math right now.
Please mention
With-
the production office app.
Well, not just the but with the getting the days and keeping your call sheets, keep your call sheets. Because when you call us, asking us to make 100 or 200 copies of call sheets for you, that is not going to make us happy. It's like, no, you can, I mean, because we can't let you into our files, but we want to help you out. But if you don't know what days you worked, because maybe you only worked a couple times each week, but you don't know which those, and then we got to hunt all this stuff down. Or, I mean, we may not do it for you because we've got a lot of stuff to do. I'm going to tell you that. If you lose your call sheets, try to get it right away, but don't call us at the end of the year with, hey, I worked a couple days on this, and I don't have time. I don't have time. So you got to do work on your part too.
I know we're almost out of time. Do you want to do resumes or you want to wrap up?
Well, let me talk about, sorry. So I'm local 871, which is script supervisors, art department coordinators, APOCs, POCs. We've now got, there's not the writers PAs, but another section, script coordinators. And mine's a lot easier to get into. Basically, I can't remember, it's 30 or 40 days. But yeah. And how I did it was I was working on a show that was union, but they signed me and I started working on it before they signed the union paperwork. So it's kind of like almost grandfathered in. So then I actually worked like 42 days on it. And because they made a deal with the IATSE, then I got my days to get into the union. You can also, if you're working on network shows, that's mostly what I work on. I was very happy being a production secretary for a very long time. I had a regular schedule. It's 12 hours every day, or 11. And then I did this and I became an APOC, and now I don't have a life. No, I love my job, but yeah, it's a lot easier to get your days that way. I think everybody has the sheet that I put out. Says VME class. That's my sheet on what does the production office do. If you guys have any questions, who's interested in being on the production side, like the production office side? So we have some people. Contact me through the VME Connect, or come up to me at class. I'll give you my email, and I'm happy to go have coffee and talk to you and go over the paperwork and stuff. Since we didn't have a lot of time, which is fine. That's
the goal for all of you to work back right. So we know that everyone started as a
yeah.
of some sort and is currently kind of great, moving up the ranks in like a middle management. What is 5 years, 10 years? What is your trajectory in your union going to take?
Well, like I said, I was very happy being a production secretary for a very long time because I was able to do a lot of my outside things, which are a lot of veteran connected activities with the Legion and pinups for vets, and I'd also act on the side. I'd do some plays here and there, stage manage. But then I started working on a couple ultra low budget and even some big stuff where I was lucky. My very first show, I had an amazing producer and an amazing UPM that took care of the crew, safety first, like you said. And they were very, it was family. And everybody took care of it, everybody worked well together. And I started seeing a little bit less of that as, you know, I don't know what's changed quite in the industry because doing it for 15 years, but I decided, hey, I need to move up and, you know, APOC, then coordinator and producer, because I want to create those teams that work well together, take care of each other, are family. And I also want to make sure that everybody's taken care of well and nobody's treated badly. So that's my goal.
My goal within the entertainment world, as with a lot of people's goals, is to direct and produce. One of the early things I caught on when I went to film school years ago is the professor asked who wants to be a director, and pretty much half the class, most of the class raised their hand, right? And so essentially I have this mindset that I don't tell anybody that. And so that would be one of the suggestions I would kind of make to you is like, we all have creative outlets. We all should and need creative outlets, whether it's theater or writing or what have you. But when you're there on set, you're doing a job and you're completing that job. So for me, I play music. I do other things too. The gear in the back that we're doing the live stream with, I have a whole corporate side of what I do too, because I'm crazy and I like to dabble in multiple things. But the money's also better there for me. And you probably experienced that too. When you're PAing, you're not making tons of money. You generally will have a survivable income. I think it's still at 168 for 12 or something.
We usually pay, you know, minimum wage for guaranteed 12 hours.
Yeah. 160 day, 175. Yeah, depending on the show. I don't do flats anymore. If you know what that is, it means that you're 175 for no matter how long you go for. Right, so I typically no longer do flats because I've been abused too many times. But yeah, so for me, that's being an AD is great. I've been able to exercise some skill in the non-union world and do that. But ultimately, I want to make a film about my mother's life. She was an alcoholic who got progressively worse, ended up passing away, and that alcohol was a side effect for her. What was really going on in her life, and she was attracted to women as well as men. And so I'm already in the middle of a documentary about her life, and then eventually I will turn that into a narrative feature and hopefully pitch to, you know, HBO and Netflix or Apple Play or Disney Plus, or maybe not Disney with that one, but whatever comes my way in that. So.
Yeah, I kind of hit on this already. I'm, you know, working as a key second AD. I got in the guild 2016. So 3 years in, I'm a key second AD. 2 more years, I think I'll be eligible to be first AD. You have to get 500 second AD days. So even after his process, you keep collecting call sheets. In my case now, this is my first time having to collect it, but put in a book of at least 500 days to upgrade to first AD within the guild. And then another 100 days to UPM. But what that means is I think within 2 years I could be first ADing. I would probably do that for 5 years at least. I love first ADing. I'm excited to get back to that, which I did as on the non-union world. I could do that for the rest of my life, or I could get into producing. So I think that's the natural progression in my mind of the assistant director, DGA's assistant director career path. Some people get into directing, some people jump into other things, but the most natural progression in the union is second AD, first AD, UPM, and or line producer. And for me in particular, it's getting to line producer through this route.
Fantastic. I mean, that was a fire hose of information. Thank you everyone for sticking it out with us. Let's give first off, thank you, Christian. Thank you. If you want to, after we take the picture, okay, we always do the class picture. If you want to stick around, Diana, are you going to be around for a minute? We can talk about resumes. Anyone wants to flash a resume? What you can tell here, simplicity is key. We can take a look at what you've got and see maybe there's a way to cobble together. Great. So we're going to get another one up there. So if you want to stick around for a minute afterwards and have us take a look at your resume, we can do that. Now we can give the big round of applause, please. Thank you, everyone. That was a lot of information. I know Mark is coming up here. We have something special for our guests. And Barbara Otan, Jobs and Internship Director. Can you let us know the kind of opportunities that your program has, that like what we learned right here is going to help you when Barbara sends out an email looking for PAs and other great programs?
All right, so first off, I just want to say thank you to you guys. That was amazing and just learned so much. So thank you for taking the time to do that and to give back, and to everybody who came out for this. You know, this is really great, and I know like we're gonna see your names again when we put these opportunities out, and so we'll take a look for them, because I think this is really important to take this step and get the education about this program. So we have a couple different internship programs. We have the corporate side, but we also have the HBO and sometimes occasionally on Warner Brothers shows trainee program. And so you can be placed in any of the departments, locations departments, wardrobe, camera, PA, art department. There are all types of opportunities. And we've really seen them increase a whole lot in the past 6 months. We just fielded some, and there were 3 shows. Actually, Westworld was one of the shows that we were submitting applications for. Perry Mason, The Reboot, like a bunch of different shows. And sometimes when you submit your resume to us, they will automatically go to at least 3 shows. And so it may be on different networks. So I cannot overstate how important it is to have this resume done, because this is our most popular program. We are completely run by volunteers. So we are doing this once we come home from work. We are going to our email inboxes and we are pulling up your resumes and taking a look at them. And I also just want to highlight real quick Diana and Tracy, because without them, this program would not run. They are the ones doing the majority of the work looking at the resumes. And so if you see them, just give them a big thank you to them for all of the work they do. You guys are amazing. So I'm going to turn this over to Diana.
What, you keep talking as where's Diana? Get over here, Diana. Okay, so we always hand our special guest here a hat that hopefully you can use on set that'll keep you protected. Apple Watch. From the sun. Here you go. Diana, I think we're going to add to your collection. There you go. So thank you so very much. Hopefully you can get some good use out of that and spread the VME, the good word on VME. And if you ever come across vets, let them know what we're doing here. And bring us more guests. So you know what? We've got another picture this direction. It'll be fun. Let's just have our guest speakers sit right up front, and everyone else will just crowd around them. We'll do a nice quick photo.
I can make that smaller. Oh, that's right. Students always ask.